Hello, guys. This is CRP speaking to you live, and this is weekly webinar number 56, how to raise a daughter. As usual, let me just get a quick check from you guys that you guys can hear me properly and you can see the screen. Just hit a +1 if everything is copacetic. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This was a suggestion from a couple of weeks ago when I asked you guys what topic you'd like me to discuss. And yeah, great. Everybody can hear me properly and see me properly. That's terrific. And so this is a subject that every guy who has a kid thinks about. Okay. And raising a boy is kind of easier because you were a boy, so you know what to do. But with a girl, it's harder because the whole thing is that, see, women are different from men. Their psychology is different. And it changes quite a bit. This is a key issue. You'll find that girls, when they're before puberty, they're like little adults. They're like little, how can I put it? They're like little men. They're not boys. Boys are rambunctious and they have the attention span of a fruit fly, but girls are like these little adults that you can have these intelligent conversations with in a way that you can't have it with a boy, like say an 8-year-old boy or a 10-year-old boy. You can have these conversations with a girl, but when they hit puberty, that's when things go haywire, okay? And after puberty, which is perfectly natural because women, when they hit puberty, it's such a colossal change that, of course, they're going to become practically different people, but they'll eventually rebound to who they were, okay? And you have to think of it in those terms. And you have to understand that that age between 13, say, when puberty hits, depending on the girl, of course, but 13 and the time that they are like basically the next decade and a half, by the time they're 28, it's going to be a trying time. But eventually they'll rebound to who they were before, so long as the experience of puberty and the post-puberty period has not been a complete disaster for them. And this is where you come in. This is where you, as the father, you have to come in and you have to help the girl, okay? Your daughter, you have to help her. You don't order her around. I have like a whole thing. I have general rules and I go through all the periods of a girl's life. But I just want to put this introductory note before we get cracking, that you have to understand that girls, they are, how could I put it? They are very robust, very anti-fragile before puberty. And during puberty, it's a nightmare for them, because their psychology changes, their body changes. It's a far greater change than with a boy. And unfortunately, so much of our society is geared towards pushing girls in a direction that will make them profoundly unhappy. And so what you have to inculcate with them before they hit puberty is how to question things and how to think for themselves. And so, okay, I just want to like lay that out there before we get going. But you have to understand that key issue, that girls become different people because of puberty, okay? And they eventually rebound to who they are. But it's that period when they snap out and then snap back, that period of puberty and the post-puberty years, that can be a disaster. And you have to safeguard them. And it's easy, okay? And that's a key issue. This is not rocket science. There are tons of women who turned out perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And why is that? Was it magic? No, because the parents were paying attention. Okay? Okay, so, I'm not going to belabor the point. Let's get cracking. I'm going to just cover up my ugly mug because you guys don't really need to see me. And here we are. How to raise a daughter. Okay. And yeah, I'm just checking real quick here. Everybody can see me properly. Everything is copacetic. Okay, let's get cracking. Right. So there are some general rules that you have to understand when you're dealing with a girl, okay, with a daughter. Understand that girls are hardwired to see their daddy as God. So don't mismanage the position. See, for a girl, for every girl, her daddy is like a god. He's like the biggest deal ever. And your position in her eyes will slip not because of what the ex-wife says, not because of what her friends say, but rather because of what you do. Okay? Because you got to understand something really important. Girls, much more than boys, girls are very smart. They pay attention to shit. They're not stupid. They're ignorant because they're young, which is different, of course, but they're not stupid. And when they see you acting badly, stupidly, that is what's going to undermine your position, not what somebody else says about you. Okay? Somebody might complain about you and hate you and blah, blah, blah. But if their complaints are that they don't like you, but you haven't done anything negative, okay, then all that, they're going to realize it's just bullshit talk about you, and it's not a real thing, okay? And any fabrication that you hear about you, that your daughter passes on, I mean, if she asks you, oh, did you do this and you do that, and it's a clear fabrication, you got to deny it. You got to nip that shit in the bud. You never allow any falsehood about you to remain in a girl's mind, okay? You put it to rest instantly, okay? So that she can maintain you as this very important person in her life. You know those girls who have daddy issues, the sluts, the drug addicts, whatnot? The problem that they had was that they had this built-in hardwired sense that their daddy was a god, and their daddy mismanaged that position. It's as simple as that. They mismanaged the position. They acted horribly to the girl. They abandoned her. They disrespected her or dismissed her or ignored her. They made promises and broke those promises. And that's how she got to have daddy issues. Okay? That's the origin of daddy issues. When the father mismanages the position that girls are hardwired to have insofar as their father is concerned. Okay? Okay. Like I said, they're not stupid. They're just ignorant because they don't know any better because they're young, which is perfectly respectable, but they're not stupid, and they can put two and two together easily. Understand that girls and children in general are extremely conservative. That's something that people don't seem to realize. They don't want to try new things, and they always want to do what everyone else is doing, especially the parents at first when they're young. And this is a key thing that people don't seem to realize. See, you see these children who are like these basically catamites, these young children who are being groomed to be the sexual plaything for homosexuals. The amazing whatever, amazing Daryl or something like that. I don't forget the name of these catamites, but these boys, these young children who are dressed up in drag and whatnot. See, why do you think they're doing it? Because they want to please the adults around them. They want to conform to the expectations of the people around them. This is normal. See, children are hardwired to conform to their social group. And of course, this makes complete sense because a recalcitrant child is going to be rejected by the group, and therefore that child will not survive. So of course, the child will want to comply with the group. See? And this is a key issue. This is a key insight that you always have to keep in mind. You see, the child wants to comply with the person or people that he or she considers their social group. Let's talk about daughter specifically. She always wants to comply with the group of people that she considers the important adults in her life. So you have to be that important adult. Even if you're divorced, you have to make the effort to be the important adult in her life. And it could be something as simple as talking to her, for 5 minutes every day over the phone. I mean, you're divorced, you're not living with your kids, but you can talk to her for 5 minutes on the phone every day. Do so. Okay? Okay. Now, another issue, this is, again, we're on the general rules. Explain. Don't simply order, and certainly don't yell. Like I said, kids, children, girls, they're smart. They're not stupid. So if you just order them around, they're eventually going to question, well, why am I being ordered around? But if you explain and calmly explain, and you take your time sometimes it's more important to take your time to explain something in detail so they understand the rationale, the logic behind it. Because if you explain something reasonably, something that prima facie might seem arbitrary, but that when you explain with some detail, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. It makes sense to that conservative nature of children. Then they'll go along with it. They'll be happy to go along with it. Yeah, because they'll understand it. It's like with everybody, okay? With any kind of position of leadership that you might have, if you explain something in detail so that the ultimate reasoning for something, for some action that prima facie might seem arbitrary, becomes really, really clear, people will follow you. They won't reject your statement, your order. They'll understand it. And what's more important is that if you make a habit of this, you can come to a point where you say, look, I need you to do this way. I'll explain it later, but right now I need you to do it like this. And they'll go along with it because you will have built up a track record of explaining rationally why something has to be done, and in explaining it, not only explaining it rationally, but in a way that makes complete sense. So if you build up enough of that trust, eventually when it comes a moment where you have to tell her, look, just do it this way, please, because it's necessary, and I'll explain it later, or later you'll understand better, they'll follow along. I'm talking about girls specifically, but also boys. Now, don't dismiss someone you disagree with. I'm talking about a third party. You're talking to your daughter, and don't dismiss somebody just arbitrarily that you disagree with. Explain why you disagree and get her to agree with you, not because she loves you, but because she sees your reasoning. It's stupid to say, oh, these fucking shit libs, they suck and they're stupid. No, that's pointless, because she'll go along with you because she loves you. But since there's no explanation, she won't really trust your judgment. But if you explain the reason, and rather than dismiss the people that you're against or oppose or think are wrong, you explain why, and that explanation is sensible and reasonable, then she'll be much more on board. Okay? Now, never push her forward. Okay? Never push her in the sense of like obliging her to do something that goes against her will, except in the very limited cases when in the medium term, she herself will want to do something that you were initially pushing, but that she didn't want to do. Let me give you a perfect example. When I took my kids skiing for the first time, they were kind of negative about the whole thing. They were like, oh, this is not, and I had to push them a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay. But once they got into the swing of it, and just maybe 30 minutes at most, they were just happy as could be. They loved it. They really enjoyed it. See? And that's what I mean. So you give them that little push, because their natural conservativeness will make them not want to try something new. But if you give them that little push, not like, like yelling, just a little push, like, please, come on, you'll enjoy it, you'll like it. Eventually they'll do it, and eventually they'll figure out that they like it, and that'll be good. And that's something that you want to build on. Okay. You want to constantly be gently pushing them into do new things, to try new things. And what will happen is that you'll find that soon enough, you don't have to really push them to try new things. They'll be into it because they'll trust you enough. They'll trust you that if you're gently pushing them to do something, then there must be a reason. It must be something that they will eventually enjoy. Okay? Now, never make her a promise you don't or can't keep. Okay? Never. Okay? There's nothing more detrimental to that godlike status that you have is when you make her a promise that you don't keep, or you can't keep, and you knew that you couldn't keep it beforehand, of course. I mean, circumstances could arise that prevent you from keeping a promise. If that case occurs, that is, you make a promise and circumstances arise that prevent you from keeping that promise, explain it. Explain it to her in detail. Remember, she's not stupid. She's just ignorant because she's young. But she'll understand clearly explained reasons. Okay? Now, here's something that is, I think, very, very important. Tell her about the stages of her life she will experience before she experiences them. Never allow her to be surprised by her own development. I mean, you got to think of it like this. Like, when you we're told, we're taught never to spoil a movie, say, or spoil a book, right? Never tell them the plot of the, or the, at least the plot points, the major plot points of some movie or book, right? Well, in the case of a girl's life, you want to spoil it for her in the sense of telling her with anticipation what will happen. You don't want her to be surprised because this is not an entertainment. This is her life. But you want to be telling her, look, you're 10 years old now, but when you're 13, 14, you'll start acting this way because of your hormones, because you're going to be going through puberty. Tell her what will happen in the future in her life. She'll be, number one, she'll be extremely interested because everybody wants to know what's going to happen to them in the future. It's natural human desire, of course. And if you tell her and explain what her reactions will be, when they happen, she'll remember. She'll remember what you said. And that will build up confidence in your judgment. You see? This is very, very important. See, the whole point is, I mean, if I had to sum it up, the whole point that you want to be doing when she's as young as possible is to build up her confidence in you that you know better, you know what will come, you know how she should act in her best interests. Okay? And you want to be building that up so that when she hits certain milestones, when she hits certain forks in the road, in the path of her life, she will take the correct path. She will make the correct decision so that she will eventually wind up as you or I or any other loving father would want our daughters to arrive at, which is to have a happy home of her own with happy and healthy children of her own. See, that's the goal. And that's the thing that will make her happy. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all recognize that feminism, so much of feminism is all about perverting women's natural desires to have a family and putting them towards becoming office drones so as to drive down the price of labor. That's the whole point of feminism. Feminism is not interested in helping women to find their own path. Bullshit. It's trying to shuffle off all women, especially the more capable women, into office drone work so as to keep labor prices down. That's the point of feminism. Let's never forget that, okay? And you, of course, want to avoid that. And how do you avoid that? By building trust in your judgment, see? Okay, always tell her the stage of life she's going to be experiencing. And a final note, something that I've noticed recently, don't overschedule your daughter's life. Don't prevent her. I mean, perhaps your wife or the mother of your daughter will, insist that she have all these activities like piano lessons and this and that and the other. No, 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 no. She's got to have a lot of time on her own, idle time that she fills up with playtime and developing at her own pace. We, in our contemporary culture, sort of like look down at free and idle time, and we look down on it and we think that, we have to keep busy. And parents, especially parents who are more educated, parents who have ambitions for their children and want them to get into the best schools, oblige their children to be overly structured and to have all of these extracurricular activities. Apart from school, the homework, there's the chess club and the French classes and the football and the this and that and the other, and their entire lives are structured and there's no free time. There's no free idle time for children to just wander around and develop on their own and do the things that they're interested in. Don't do that. Do not overschedule your daughter's life. Make sure she has plenty of idle time. Because that idle time, that play time, that time that seems like a waste of time is actually essential for their development. Because, see, it's the time when they put all the shit that you're teaching them, they put it all together in their heads, see? And they discover what they're interested in. If you overschedule a child's life and never allow them to do whatever the fuck they want, what'll happen is that they'll be just drones, worker drones, yeah? No different from those worker bees that, they work all day, and they don't have a thought in their head. They're just complying with what people around them are demanding, see? Do you want a child like that? Do you want a child who's just a drone? No, of course not. You want a child who's a complete human being. And so you have to make sure that she has plenty of time to do nothing, to just wander and play and have a good time and not be stressed And during that time, she will put together the lessons that you teach her. Okay, now here in this part of this presentation, I'm going to discuss the different stages of a child's life between the ages of 4 and 9, between the ages of 9 and 13, i.e. puberty, excuse me, before she hits puberty, then the ages of 13 to 16, 17, and 17 until she's 20, 21. Okay, those are the 4 stages for purposes of this discussion. Okay, when she's a child between the ages of 4 and 9, what should you teach her? Well, it's very simple. The first thing that you should teach her is a variety of sports and physical activities. The more the merrier, okay? Not mental activities, okay? Physical activities. Get her used to her own body. Make sure that she does sports and make it a mix of individual sports and team sports. And what's important is that, see, never always push her to do the sport, but never push her to be the best, okay? This absurd notion that, oh, you got to give it your all, 100% effort, you got to be the best. Oh, that's stupid. That's stupid, especially with children. Children should be trying different sports just for the fun of it, just because it's cool. Like archery, like rugby, like tennis, like whatever sport. Push them into it. Give them that initial push that all children need because, like I said, they're all conservative. But don't make it a burden. Don't make it unpleasant. Make sure that she's enjoying herself. And always ask, are you having a good time? Because if you're not, we can do something else. Always insist on that point. And periodically change the sport. And even if she's like, no, I love to do the sport, you just say, look, yeah, we can come back to it. Why don't you try this other sport, this other activity, swimming or whatever, and just try it for a while. Always vary it, because what you want to be doing is you want to be making sure that your daughter, and this goes for boys as well, they get used to their own body, and you want to teach them about gradual improvement. It's very important. You want to teach them how over time they can become better. They become different from who they were before. And this is something that's very important to teach, especially to girls, because that way she'll get used to the notion that, yes, now I'm not very good at something. Later I'll be better. I'll be different than I am today. And this will translate very easily to the issue of puberty, of how to handle it. And she'll understand that, oh yeah, now I'm like as I am now, but later I'll be like these older girls who are so silly and just so ridiculous. And that will be a very important lesson. And that's why it's important to do different physical activities, different sports, so that she learns about gradual change, her own gradual change, and how she can become a completely different person over time. And so she has to, understand this, okay? Now, the issue of doing individual and team sports is for the very simple reason, in team sports, you succeed by all working together. In individual sports, by definition, it's up to your own effort. And this will teach her what kind of a person she is at a very young age. And she'll start to understand is if she's a person who at the age of 4 to 9, when they're really like their own individual little people, okay? She'll start to understand, what kind of a person I am. Of course, she's not going to be able to articulate that. That's not the point. The point is that she'll get a sense of what she likes, of who she is. And this is what you want, of course. Now, you also want to be teaching her at this age, 4 to 9 years, about how bad life choices lead to bad consequences. Okay? You want to show her the before and after pictures of meth addicts in conjunction with the before and after pictures of girls who've ridden the cock carousel. Yeah. And those pictures of those meth addicts, they're heartbreaking, and they are horrifying to any child. They are the best preventive for drug addiction imaginable. Don't be afraid to scare her, because you're going to scare the shit out of her, okay? And do it with boys too, okay? Show them those pictures. You know what I'm talking about, those before-after pictures of meth addicts. You see somebody and they look okay, like a normal person. They got arrested, for meth. and they looked, okay, unhappy to be arrested, of course, but otherwise fine. But then, 6 months later, a year later of their meth addiction, another arrest photograph, and they look horrifying. They've got all these like they've got like these open sores on their skin. They look like they've aged 10 years. It's horrifying. You want to show that to kids. You want to scare the shit out of them. That's what you want to do. You want to scare them. Okay. And here's the beauty about the internet. Yeah. I mean, this didn't happen when I was growing up. That now, you have a lot of before after pictures of these nice girls who became these broken whores. That's the only word the only expression I can use to describe them. You know what I'm talking about. There's the picture of some girl when she's 16 and she's a cheerleader and she has this big, bright, beautiful smile and she seems like just like the nicest girl imaginable. Yeah. And then you see a picture of her 4 years later and she's got like a Skrillex haircut, purple hair, like 3 nose rings, right? And she looks dead inside. And you can tell, and she's got like tattoos on her face and she looks horrifying, right? You can find those pictures fairly easily. You want to show them to your daughter. Yeah, your 4 to 9-year-old daughter. Not like shove them in her face and scare the fuck out of her. No, you want to do it gently. Okay, like for instance, what you do is like, oh, I saw something so terrible. This is why drug addiction is so bad. And you explain to her, because remember, they're not stupid. They're just young. They just don't know stuff because they're young. So you explain to them, look, drug addiction is when people take these chemicals of various sorts because it makes them feel really, really good for a really short period of time, but it hurts them very badly. And this is what happens. And you show them the picture of the junkies, the meth addicts, the before after pictures. And then you show them the pictures of the before after girls who've written the cock carousel. And how do you explain it? You say, look, she was a nice girl, but then she started hanging out with the wrong people and they convinced her to do foolish things. And you always emphasize that. You always emphasize that it's the people who convinced her to do silly things. And she knew better, but she didn't. Don't go into the details and don't explain sex to them because they're too young. Just the image will be enough. And how can I put it? Sort of like confuse the barrier between meth addiction and girls who are addicted to cock. Make it pretty much one and the same. Okay? So that there's that sense that, oh, they started acting in bad ways and I don't want to be like that. And what's important here is that a girl between the ages of 4 and 9 is going to see the visible consequences of bad behavior. And it is going to scare the shit out of her, okay? So you have to be very gentle about how you bring it up, okay? And how you show it. Like I said, you have to be very gentle. You don't shove their faces in this thing. This is heavy shit. I mean, look, you're an adult. You've seen those pictures, and it shocked the fuck out of you. Imagine a child, okay? So you have to rehearse what you're going to say when you pop this on her, okay? You have to rehearse it and be very clear what message you want to send. And the message, of course, that you want to be sending is, see, they listen to bad people who convince them of bad things. And they turned out horribly because of bad decisions, because of bad choices. But of course, I'm your daddy, and I want to make sure that this never happens to you. See, that's the message you want to get across. See? And it's very, very important that you be very gentle, okay? Because, some people, a lot of times, they don't have any kind of like common sense, or they don't have any kind of notion of not merely discretion, but rather proportionality, see? Remember, if these pictures, these before-after pictures, shock you as an adult, imagine a child, okay? It will shock them out of their skin, okay? So you have to be very careful, and you have to have one clear overriding message. And it's, they turned out this way because they did bad things, because bad people convinced them to do these bad things. And they thought that they would be cool, and it turned out to be they weren't cool, and their life was ruined. It'll be an incredibly powerful message. It'll stay with them for the rest of their life. especially when, when children come across something horrifying like that at a young age, it sticks with them forever. Okay. I mean, don't underestimate the power of this that you're inflicting on them. So you better be really fucking clear about the message that you want to impart. You want to rehearse that message. And what would be smart, for instance, is for you to videotape yourself alone, of course, without your daughter, telling the camera, the message that you want to give her, and fine tuning it and working it and honing it. You want it to be gentle, but you want it to be this clear message that this is what happens, not to bad people. That's a key issue. It's not that they're bad. No. You want to emphasize that it's what happens when people make bad choices because they hang out with the wrong people, because they don't listen to their daddy who tells them what's best for them. Okay? Words to that effect. You want to be very careful because you're playing with fucking fire here. You could potentially hurt your daughter very, very badly. Okay? If you give her the wrong message, you could convince her of something that you don't want to. I mean, think of the movie Inception, right? The whole conceit of the movie Inception was to try to implant an idea into this guy's mind, right? You want to implant an idea into your daughter's mind. What's the idea that you want to implant? You want to be very careful, and you want to have it very, very clearly defined for yourself so that when you pop this on her, she'll take that message. It'll stick for the rest of her life. Okay? Okay. Now, something not so, deep as that or harsh as that is you want to get her, when she's like 4 or 9, you want to get her into puzzles, not screen time. Okay. You want to make sure that she doesn't have screen time. No, you want to get her into puzzles. Okay. It could be that the puzzles are like on a screen, like Sudoku, for instance. Like I have my own daughter. She's addicted to Sudoku. I don't mind. See, because Sudoku makes her think. Okay. She can do like the expert ones at this point, and she's not even 8 years old. Right. I love that she can do that because it makes her think, really think. And she's gotten good at math. She's gotten good at deductive reasoning because of it. Okay. If you're going to have screen time, make sure it's a puzzle. Okay. And the puzzles, the point of a puzzle is to make her learn how to figure things out and think for herself. That's the whole point of puzzles. Because when you're older, right, like in my case, I actually do Sudoku now because I've realized that when I do like a Sudoku, like one a day roughly, it'll take me between the fastest I've ever done a Sudoku, like the expert level one, is 11 minutes. And the longest, it's been like 40 minutes. But I try to keep it like around 25, 30 minutes, right? And if I don't finish in that time, I do something else. But the point I've noticed is that when I do that consistently, I'm sharper, okay? That and also sleeping better and some other stuff. Well, basically sleeping better. But I've noticed with small children, when they do Sudoku, they learn to make inferences a lot quicker. They learn to think more clearly. And that's just one kind of puzzle. You want to expose her to as many different puzzles as possible. Crossword puzzles, the works, okay? And not have her watching screens. The other thing you want to be having her do is get into reading. How reading is much more fun than watching a screen. Now, this takes a lot of effort. Like my wife, insofar as our 2 kids are concerned, she reads to them every night for about half an hour, 45 minutes. When they're all in bed, ready to go to sleep, they all cuddle up and read some book. And what's happened is that because of this nightly reading, which is every single night, my daughter already knows how to read both in English and in Russian, which is quite an achievement, but it's just from the nightly habit. And it's just half an hour, 45 minutes a day. And lots of times, you're not going to feel like doing it. Well, you got to make the effort. It's simple as that. You get what you put into something. And so if you put in the effort with your daughter, it's going to have results. Same with your son, by the way. Okay. I mean, this stuff at 4 to 9 years old, this pretty much applies to both boys and girls. Okay. Now, yeah. And also what you can do is that, see, on the reading front, you can bribe your daughter. Don't bribe her with a screen. Okay. Don't say, oh, if you read this, I'll let you watch TV or cartoons. No. It can't be a bribe with the screen, because then she'll associate Oh, I got to do this fucking reading in order to really enjoy myself with the screen. No, it has to be something else that she really enjoys that requires effort. You want to teach her effort, okay? Because reading demands effort. Doing a physical activity like some sport, that's an effort. Watching a screen, that's passive. A Sudoku on a screen, that's active. You got to be paying attention, of course, because in Sudoku, the fucking puzzle doesn't solve itself. But like watching YouTube videos or cartoons or whatever, that's passive. You want to make sure that your child, boy or girl, is not passive, that all their activities are active, that they have to do something. Okay, that's why I'm so against screens. Screens are a great thing for parents when they need a babysitter, but they're detrimental to the kid. Okay, now, before she hits puberty, your daughter hits puberty, you should teach her a few things. First of all, you should teach her about sex and how babies are made. This is between the ages of 9 and 13. Teach her about it, and don't make like a big to-do about it. It's just like a natural thing. I mean, look, every mammal does it. It's not particularly weird. And there are 7.7 billion people, as I understand it. There have existed in all of human history about 20 billion people. So there have been at least 20 billion times that people have fucked, okay? Having sex is not a particularly novel thing. And don't make it a big taboo. Just explain it very straightforwardly. And you'd be surprised, girls at this age, when they're between 9 and 13, that's when they are most like these little adults. I mean, I personally adore them when they're at this age because they're like little adults. They're like little elderly people. Yeah, they're like little postmenopausal women. It's really funny because they're very serious. They have a wicked sense of humor, though. I've interacted with different children of this age, nieces and nephews and young cousins, and they're just so amusing. And this period lasts, just a very short time. When they hit puberty, and then they can become very boring because they become very insecure. And well, I'll get to that in just a moment. But the point, at this age, 9 to 13, they are little adults. Okay, they are little adults, and you can talk to them like a little adult, and they'll understand. Like I said, they're not stupid. Talk to them about sex, about how babies are made, and take her to a stud farm or a working farm to see animals copulating. Yeah, it's just perfectly natural. It's not a big thing. And they'll be really interested in a weird kind of scientific way, because since it's pre-puberty, they're not going to be embarrassed. They're going to look at it like, wow, this is really neat. They'll look at it like some Martian looking at people. I mean, think of them as little Martians. That's what they are at this age. So they'll be fascinated. They won't be embarrassed. And they might think it's a little bit grim, but they're not going to be embarrassed, and they will be fascinated. Make it clear, and this is a key issue, make it clear that sex between two people who love each other is a wonderful thing. But anonymous sex with farm animals is dehumanizing and gross. Make that clear distinction. And a natural question that will arise with a young girl is that she will say, having sex is gross, and you'll explain, well, when you're a little bit older, when you hit puberty and afterwards, you'll discover that your body changes and the way you think changes. And what'll happen is that when you have sex with somebody that you love, it'll be a lot of fun. Okay. Also hit them with logic, because this is a perfect age for logic with them, because they understand logic better than feelings. You explain to them, look, what'll happen also is that when you're older, okay, it'll be the natural instinct kicking in of you wanting to have children. And so that's why you'll enjoy sex, okay? And trust me, and they will trust you, okay? Now, directly make the connection between meth addicts, slatternly women who've ridden the cock carousel, and having random anonymous sex. Make it really, really fucking clear, okay? If you're going to inculcate in your daughter any kind of taboo, this is the one, okay? Make it clear that anonymous, humanizing sex is like the worst thing. It's like taking meth, okay? And blur the distinction between the two, because that's what you want. You don't want to have a daughter who's a whore. You want to make sure that your daughter grows up not with big hangups about sex. No, but rather a clear understanding that sex is a wonderful thing, but can be extremely dehumanizing if it's done anonymously and without love and care for the other person. And a girl between the ages of 9 and 13, she will understand this distinction and she will internalize it, which is what you want. See? A problem, especially I've noticed with American parents, is they think that children are stupid and they baby everything down and they avoid talking about things that children are perfectly capable of understanding. See? A child of 9 to 13 will see two animals copulate and see the way how dehumanized it is. And they will recognize that there's no love, there's nothing, there's no human care in that copulation. And they'll understand and make the connection with the meth addicts and the slatternly women. They'll make that connection if you just give them a little push in that direction. See? And so that's what you want them to understand that random sex, constant sex with constant sexual partners, it's dehumanizing like farm animals. And that sex in and of itself is a wonderful thing. After all, it created her. Okay. And make it clear. And she will internalize this. Okay. Now, something else. At this age, insofar as sex and babies are concerned, you explain how babies are made, of course. You take her to meet new mothers. In our contemporary society, young children of the ages of 9 and 13, unless they have younger siblings, they rarely interact with a baby. Make the effort. If you find out somebody has a baby, go and visit them with your daughter and make sure that your daughter interacts with the baby, holds the baby, carries the baby around, learns to lose their fear of babies. And on the contrary, what will happen very quickly, because it's perfectly natural, is that she'll fall in love with those babies. Every time. Okay. It happens all the time because children love babies. You know what the number one wish for most children under the age of 10 is? Look it up. It's having a younger brother or sister. They don't care if it's a brother or sister. They just want to have another baby. They love babies. Okay. They think they're cute and it's just built in. Also, if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, it makes a hell of a lot of sense because see, if older siblings hated the younger sibling, they'd kill them, or do things to prevent their flourishing. And so it's perfectly natural that from an evolutionary perspective, you would want the older children to welcome younger siblings. Of course, there's going to be sibling rivalry when they're close in age, but a child that is conscious will always welcome a younger child and always look forward to it and want one. See? Because, of course, it's good for the parents. It's good for the evolutionary process of multiplying, right? And so children love babies. You take your daughter, when she's 9 to 13 years old or younger even, okay? I mean, it's going to be the same reaction. They're going to love it. And the more babies your daughter interacts with, the more she will come to internalize, oh, this is the natural stage. You don't have to give her a big speech about how one day you will be a mother. Just mention it casually and just say, oh, one day you're going to be a mother and you're going to have a baby of your own. And they're going to be imagining it and thinking it. Okay. Like I said, you don't have to give her a big speech. See, with children, with everybody, lots of times you don't have to give a big speech. Lots of times they'll connect the dots all on their own. Okay. And in this case, if you take your daughter to visit a new mother who's got a newborn baby, maybe a couple of weeks old or something like that, and of course, with the mother's permission, you put the little baby in her arms and stuff, it's going to have a huge impact on her. Okay. And you just casually mention, oh, well, one day you'll be a mother too. And she'll be thinking about it and she'll be dreaming about it. Okay. It'll be like a huge deal for her. Okay. And it'll have a huge impact. The problem that we have in our contemporary culture is that so many couples, especially upper middle class or educated people, have only one child. And a lot of times that one child does not interact with their extended family because the extended family is not around. They're thousands of miles away. And so because of it, they don't see other babies. They don't interact with babies. And they don't internalize the fact that they like babies. See? They like them a lot. A lot of times, see, people who come from big families with a lot of younger siblings, they in turn have a lot of children of their own because they grew up around a lot of children and liked it. Okay. They liked having a lot of babies around. And when they become adults and have families of their own, they want to have a lot of babies too. It becomes internalized. But in our contemporary culture, because we're so atomized and we're so far away from one another, we go to different cities because of our job, we go to different cities because of a university education, whatnot. We don't see our extended families. Our own families have just one or two children, right? And so we don't get to hang around babies. And so we don't know what we're missing. And so that's why you want to make sure that your daughter interacts with a lot of babies. Okay. Let her babysit. Okay. And you can even, it'll be annoying sometimes, but you can have her be the babysitter, quote unquote, but you're sort of like supervising, right? It'll be annoying, but it'll be a good thing because she'll internalize this notion of caring for a child, and it'll become something that's important to her. And she'll be thinking to herself, yes, one day I will become a mother. I'll be a mommy with a little baby of my own. And she'll start imagining, how she's going to mother this child. And it'll be, of course, silly things like, oh, what clothes will I get her? No, I won't get her like those ugly polka dot things that, Mrs. Jones puts on her baby. No, I'll put something, nice and like pink or something. You see my point. They'll be imagining having a child of their own, and it'll become a dream for them. And that's what you want to inculcate. See? That's why you want to take your daughter to meet new mothers with newborn children. And by the way, you don't have to wait until they're age 9. You can do it younger, as young as you want. Okay. Frankly, the younger, the better. Okay. Of course, when they're too young, they might, not hurt the baby, but just like, not know what the hell to do with it. But once they get the idea of a baby, say 4 years old, something like that, 4 or 5, by 6, they know what a baby is and they understand the whole concept. Okay. 4 or 5, roughly, they'll know, they'll be able to take care of it. And you'd be surprised. My, my daughter is a year and 9 months older than my son. And when my son was, I don't know, 3 months, we put him once in her little baby stroller because she had a baby stroller for her dolls. And I was the one actually who did it. I put our son, Ramon, in my daughter's doll baby stroller, and he fit perfectly. And she was happy as a clam, and she pushed him around all over the place, like he was her kid, right? And he didn't mind, he was just like, baby, like 3 months old, I guess, or something like that, 2 months old maybe. And he was just like, oh man, he looked like a little alien, like all newborn babies do. And she was just excited to be pushing him around and just like taking him here and there and whatnot, and it was like a big impact on her. It's a very healthy impact. Don't be afraid of doing that. Okay. Okay. And because like I said, in that case, she must have been around less than 2 years old or about 2 years old. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Next thing, teach her when she's like 9 to 13, teach her that with puberty, girls become much more compliant with their group and far less independent. Okay, teach her this. I'm talking about something fairly specific, but in general, teach them about puberty. Teach them about the next stage, as I said before. Explain to them what's going to happen to them. Explain to them that, when they hit 13, roughly, they're going to start menstruating. And with menstruation, they're going to have a whole host of changes to their hormones. And because of it, they're going to start acting in radically different ways. And it'll be a product of their hormones. Spoil the plot, okay? Don't think that this is like you want to keep them from knowing. On the contrary, they need to know so that they can prepare for it, so they can internalize this notion that they're going to change radically because of this. And explain to them it's not that so much that their bodies are going to change that much, which they do. It's their personalities that are going to change quite a bit. And teach them that this is a passing thing, okay? And that you're going to be there, and that when she has a periodic meltdowns because of hormones and you'll be there, and that nothing she says will ever really bother you, okay? I mean, make it clear that whatever happens in puberty to her in terms of her mentality, not to worry. The other thing too, of course, is, and I forgot to put it there, which I should have, You want to make sure to show her examples of girls who go through puberty. You want to show her, look at what's happening to little Cindy down the street. Remember her, a year ago when she was 11 years old, she was so nice, and now she's 13 and she's like a disaster and all the rest of it. That's puberty. Okay. So that she can internalize it, so that she can understand what's going to happen. Okay. You don't want things to be scary. Okay. You want to make sure that things are really clear and they're understandable. And what's something scary? Well, when you're ignorant of it. See? I mean, what scares you the most? A dark room. Yeah, that scares you the most because you don't know what the fuck is in there. It could be, just a nice comfy bed and nothing else, and some warm slippers and a nice bathrobe, right? Or it could be, a room full of torture devices. You don't know because it's black. There could be like a fucking tiger there. And the point is, you're scared when you don't know. But when you do know, when somebody tells you, this is more or less what's going to happen, and this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and it's no big deal, and it happens to everybody. Well, when somebody gives you that kind of attitude of telling you that it's no big deal, it happens to everybody, and this is exactly what's going to happen, more or less in this order, or more or less in this way, and the way it's happening to this girl down the street or whatnot, or this cousin or whomever, right? Then a girl will be much more confident and calm. See? Ignorance is what scares children, scares everybody. So you want to tell your daughter what's going to happen to her so that she knows. Okay? Okay. The other thing you want to be teaching her is that you want to be teaching them that choosing the right group of friends will become important during puberty. Because you want to explain that when she is in puberty, there will be a drive for her to be just like her friends. And a lot of the things that she enjoys, she'll give them up because her friends don't do them. Okay? Explain this to her. Explain how a lot of times girls who are 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, they love to do some activity, whatever kind of activity, doesn't really matter. But their group of friends does not like that activity. And because of it, they give it up. They give up that thing that they love so much in order to be friends with that group of girls. And that she should not do it. It's better to not have friends than to have bad friends. Emphasize that point. And go back to the meth addicts and those before-after pictures of those slatternly girls, slatternly women, and tell your daughter, see, this is what happens. See, this is what happens, that they give up and decide to do what all their friends are doing, and this is how they turn out. And that's why it's better to have no friends than bad friends. And explain also, of course, it's not that all friends make you become a monster. No, it's the bad friends. And that she'll know. And that what she has to do is recognize those bad friends. And when she recognizes them, she has to go to you, go to her mother and say, I don't really like these girls. I want to be friends with other people. And how can we do this? And explain, make it clear that you're there to help her. And that if she falls into a wrong crowd, you can help her get out of that wrong crowd and get in with a good crowd. Not with like the stupid heavy-handed thing of like you as a parent showing up and telling off these girls. No, of course not. That's stupid. But rather taking her into a different school so that she'll be exposed to different people, a better class of people. Tell her that there are different solutions to the problem. That if she's with the wrong crowd, you can take her out of her school and put her into a different school, perhaps a better school, a private school, and you'll have to make sacrifices in order to pay for that private school, but she'll be exposed to a better class of people. And tell her that you're willing to do that so that she doesn't fall into the wrong crowd. Make it clear that you don't want her to fall into the wrong crowd, and make it clear that causal link between falling into a wrong crowd and becoming a meth addict and becoming the slatternly slut of a girl. Okay? Those before-after pictures, yeah. Make it clear, make that causal connection, that causal chain explicit, that the bad friends, the wrong friends, yeah, causes you to become like these meth addicts. and tell her that what happens is that and tell her when before she hits puberty, that what happens is that as she hits puberty, she'll have this overwhelming desire to conform and be like these bad friends. And what'll happen is that just her knowing this, will have an enormous impact on her. Because just knowing this, she'll realize, oh yeah, I'm doing this not because I really want to, but because my hormones are driving me to conform. Because do keep in mind, her hormones are going to make her do all kinds of crazy shit that she herself will realize later was because of hormones and not because of what she wanted. Mm-hmm. Because of course, I mean, like girls sometimes when they're teenage girls, when they're in their puberty, right? They'll all of a sudden have this complete and massive blowout with their mother or father or whomever, right? Over nothing, over their breakfast cereal or some shit, right? And then later they'll feel really guilty and awful about it. Mm-hmm. And they'll realize, oh man, that wasn't me. That was just, the hormones, puberty. They'll realize that if they can't articulate it, it doesn't matter. They'll know it. They'll know that it wasn't them. It was the hormones that did it, right? And see, that realization, when you explain that it also goes into the kind of people that she'll hang out with and how she'll react to them, if you just explain that to her, when it happens, she'll realize it. Okay? It's when she doesn't understand why she's doing it that she'll continue down that path. You see? Okay. So the next issue, this is before she hits puberty, right? Ages 9 to 13. What you should teach her? You should teach her how the collective is often wrong and how it's important to go against the collective. Okay? Teach your daughter about past manias like the Salem witch hunts, McCarthyism and the Red Scare, and I forgot to put another example there, but you know what I mean. You want to give her lots of examples from history, okay? And ease them into how there are collective manias going on today that she will have to resist. And one of the things that you should tell, and not be afraid of it, is say, yeah, feminism is one. And explain how feminism is a mania that tries to convince women to throw away the things that'll make them happy in favor of becoming worker drones. And she'll get the message. See, like I said, they're not stupid. They just don't know that much because they're young. Okay. But the emphasis is you want to explain it like this is what happened in the past, and this is kind of what's happening today. And you want to avoid this. And they'll get the message. They're not stupid. Okay. Especially when you show them the negative consequences. Okay. That thing I was telling you before of showing the before after pictures of meth addicts and sluts, right? Of course, when you show those pictures of meth addicts, they're going to be scared shitless of any drug, which is not a bad thing now, is it? Right? And they'll be scared shitless of becoming a slut because they'll see how those girls, their soul is dead. I mean, you just look at the pictures of those poor girls, and you can see how they're fucked up. Their soul is dead, and they'll see that, and they'll want to avoid that. Okay, and so you have to teach them what's going on. Again, you don't baby them. You don't treat them as idiots. On the contrary, you treat them with respect. And when you treat them with respect, you treat them like adults. In the sense that they're just as smart as any adult. They just don't know so much, and you have to explain things to them. They'll respond. See? They don't respond to you screaming at them. They never will. Nobody ever does, right? And they do not respond when you arbitrarily say, don't do this. You want to avoid that at all costs. You want to explain why something is to be avoided. Okay? Okay. Now, she hits puberty, okay? Now, puberty, she's going to be a fucking nightmare. Simple as that, And what you want to do is whenever she explodes at you, whenever she cries at you, whenever she has a complete meltdown for whatever reason, you just take it all with equanimity. You just ignore it. Don't take it personal. She might wind up saying horrible things, and what'll happen is that in some fight or other, she might want to pick a fight. She might just be like really upset and just want a fight to start. And she will say horrible things because nobody knows us better than our children. Okay. That's something that you'll discover. Children know the parents better than anyone, many times better even than the spouses do. See? Because you see, a child's existence depends on the adults around them, specifically the parents. So children learn to study their parents and know their reaction really fucking well, learn to anticipate those reactions. And think about your own case with your own parents when you were little. You remember those times that you sort of like almost deliberately goaded your parent just to see if you could do it, and you did. And then you were like, shit, man, I did this, and now they're pissed at me when I should have just kept my mouth shut. But it was sort of like this part of you, this like little scientist from Mars who wanted to see how the natives react here. Yeah, that's what you did. And you provoked your parents. Or you knew that if you said this, oof, things would go south. And so you didn't, right? You knew. Because you could predict your parents, because your welfare depends on them. Children always learn to study their parents really, really carefully, and they learn to anticipate what their parents' reaction is going to be. Okay? Most kids are not surprised by their parents because they know what's going to happen, because they know them. Okay? And so what will happen is that, see, when your daughter is going through puberty, right? What'll happen is that she'll get pissed off for random reasons, get upset with you, and say some shit that might ordinarily set you on fire. Well, you got to control that shit, okay? You got to just grit your teeth and just like, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to this because I know that's the hormones talking. And later on, she's going to apologize and she'll feel horrible. And what you have to do is be smart and magnanimous and say, don't worry about it. And not even bring it up, just ignore it and just forget about it. Okay? See, because they'll know. They'll know. And see, as you go through these waves of that'll die down quickly. See, what'll happen is that she'll learn to trust you more. And as you become, how can I put it? Steady to her unpredictability. And you are not goaded by her anyway. What'll happen is that she'll learn to depend on you more, depend on your judgment more, okay? Which is what you want. You want her to depend on your judgment and to listen to your judgment. And that can only happen when she acts in a way verbally that is outrageous and you sort of like ignore it. If she does something that is just, untoward, that's different. But if she just says some nasty shit, it's spur of the moment, that potentially could really hurt your feelings, but you decide, I'm just going to ignore it. And later, when she comes and apologizes, because she'll feel bad, she'll feel horrible for having said some nasty shit, because it's natural, because she'll love you, okay? Well, what you have to do is just be like, don't worry, baby. I know, and you said something mean, and it was just because you were like upset and a little bit out of sorts, and it doesn't matter. Okay? The more you are that rock for her, the more she will depend on you and listen to you and respect your judgment. And most important of all, follow your judgment. Okay? Which is what you want. Okay, so the thing that you wanted to be doing is you want her to be questioning the social and political orthodoxy. And tell her explicitly, if something is true, it can withstand scrutiny. And if it's false, it will fear and attack scrutiny. I mean, make that really, really clear. Don't rail at the liberals and the shit libs. Explain why they are wrong and why their approach will bring disaster. Okay? The more reasonable your explanation, the more she will agree. Which is what you want, of course. Now, you want to teach her to identify and question social pressures and social orthodoxy. And you bring up the example of her friends, and you tell her, I bet your friends, they all want to wear like a certain clothing or whatever the fuck, right? And you tell her, well, why? Why are they all wearing the same fucking clothes? Okay? Because of social pressure. Because one comes up with them, and one of the girls uses some kind of shoe or dress or whatever the fuck. And she insists that it's cool, and so others use it, and all of a sudden they're all using it because it's supposed to be cool. in my own case, what happened to me when I was like around 18 in Chile, for some reason, the summer the summer before I turned 18, before I went to college, right? The summer of January, February of 86, I remember. For some fucking reason that I do not understand. Or no, the summer of 87, doesn't matter. Every fucking girl that summer bought these like fucking white cowboy boots with like little fringes hanging from the side. Okay. I have no idea why, but every single girl bought those fucking cowboy boots. And they were all the same. They were white leather. And it was summer. So, and they were wearing these stupid cowboy boots. And I remember talking to a friend of mine and saying, man, their feet must sweat. Those fuckers must smell horrifying. And then later I banged some girl and they did indeed smell horrifying, you know? Yeah, because their feet were like just being, braised in those cowboy boots all day in the summer. And it wasn't that hot in Chile, but still, leather boots that would have been, properly comfortable in winter, and they're using them on these white cowboy boots, right? Every fucking girl had this stupid fashion and lasted that summer, and then it was gone, thank goodness. But the point remains. See, it's like fashion. And you have to explain that there are moral fashions, there are social and political fashions, and these orthodoxies, see, a lot of times they can't stand scrutiny. And a lot of times people use them, and you have to explain this to her. A lot of times people believe these orthodoxies, not because they believe these orthodoxies, but to show that they belong to a certain political or social class. Okay? And that she has to identify and question those social pressures and social orthodoxies. You have to teach her this because she's not going to realize it on her own, or she'll realize it far later. Okay? You have to be the one to tell her. And you have to teach her to focus on the emphasis on women in careers instead of motherhood. Why? Why is this huge emphasis on careers, but no emphasis on motherhood? Why is it that, women should be allowed to choose, but they can't choose being a mother or a housewife? Why? Mm-hmm. Then emphasize something else. Emphasize how feminists seem so mentally unhealthy. Why are they trying to make women just as unhappy and sick as them? Mm-hmm. And the answer is obvious. Misery loves company. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see, you want to have her question the world around her. Okay? That's what you want to do, especially during this period of puberty, because when she's in puberty, it's so easy for her to be co-opted by social forces, by other groups of people. And so you want her not to tell her, but to have her question and question these orthodoxies. Question why, for instance, is all this climate change stuff going on? What's going on there? And of course, have the answers. And the answer, for instance, in climate change is because a lot of people, a lot of companies make a lot of money off of climate change because the government imposes certain restrictions, and companies can make a lot of money because of these restrictions, because it creates unfair competition. And I can tell you that because that was my business for a while when I was in the solar energy business. That a lot of times you want these green regulations because it'll benefit you. You'll make money off of it. And you want to have her question these orthodoxies. See? You don't want her to be questioning you. You want her to be questioning the orthodoxies of the world around you. And so what you do is that whenever she turns that questioning towards you, you give her good explanations. And if you don't know something, you make it clear you don't know. And you think that this might be the best reason, but you're not sure. And see, all of this is to build credibility with your daughter. Credibility. Credibility is the most important thing. Like I said at the beginning, little girls look at their daddy like a god. And so you want to shore up your position. And see, it's okay if you don't know the answer, so long as you tell her and don't bullshit her. See? Because it's natural that when she's, 13, 15, 17, she'll come across things that you don't know the answer to. That's perfectly fine. And there'll be an age when she'll be looking to find things that you don't know the answer to. And if you totally preempt her and say, I don't know, and I wish I did know, we should try to find out together. it'll change the dynamic of the relationship. It'll change it because it will no longer be an issue of, I'm going to try to get him, but rather, oh, he's trying to find out what's really going on. And he didn't know about this, and he wants to discover it with me. And that's a completely different approach, see? And that'll be natural. I mean, as a daughter, any child, boy or girl, evolves, or not evolves, grows, they'll grow and they'll naturally question the parent. And if the parent, rather than says, oh, I know all the answers, and tries to bullshit his way, but rather says, when he doesn't know, he says, I don't know. We should look into what's going on here. Then it changes the dynamic, and that's what you want. You want them to trust you. And part of that trust building is when you don't know the answer, say so. Don't bullshit. Say, I'm not really sure. Well, what do you think? And let's explore it together and find out. See? Now, the other thing you want to be doing is re-emphasizing the meth addicts and victims of the cock carousel. You always want to emphasize that shit. And what's the point of that? Bad decisions, bad friends, okay? You want to teach her that good boys are clean-cut, hardworking, and respect girls. Yeah, and tattoos and weird haircuts and fucking nose rings, and say, no, that's bullshit. And tell her, I've seen it all before. I'm older than you. I know more, not because I'm smarter than you, but because I've been around longer. That's my motto with you guys, and it's the same motto you should apply to your kid, boy or girl. And you got to tell them that the good boys are clean cut, and they might not be that exciting, but they're decent. Okay. Now, here at this age is when you want to be talking about marriage. You want to be talking about it a little bit earlier, perhaps as well, but here especially, you want to make it clear that marriage is not a nirvana, and you want to make it clear that it's a partnership with a division of labor. The man gets the resources, the woman makes the babies and the home. And tell her, what is the word homemaker? What does that mean? She makes the home, because a home is just a house. The home is that indescribable quality of a family living in that house. It's not just an issue of the things and sofas and clothes and possessions that are in the house. No, it's that indescribable spirit. And that's what a woman brings. And of course, a woman makes the babies. And you got to explain to her that the reason that a woman makes the babies and the man gets the resources is because of evolution. Because throughout human history, as a species, for at least 3 million years, which is as long as the human species has been around, before it was Australopithecus and whatnot, but since we've been primates, what happens is that a woman on her own cannot care for her child and get the calories necessary for her own and her child's survival. She needs a partner to get those resources. And that's the job of the man. And before, the man would go out and hunt the woolly mammoth. Now he gets in his car and drives to work and makes money, in advertising or whatever the fuck. But it's the same process. It's become more modernized, but it's the same relationship. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's the perfectly natural one. And you have to emphasize that marriage is not a nirvana. And you have to emphasize, of course, what is the point of a marriage? And the point of a marriage is the common project. It's not to find bliss with one another. And tell her that that's just absurd. It's just bullshit in fantasy novels. The idea of a marriage is not to find bliss with your partner, but rather to find a partner who wants the same things that you do and with whom you are striving to achieve those things together. You want to be explaining that. Because again, our society is not very good at that. And for various reasons, there are lots of groups that don't want to explain that and want to just shuffle off all women into the workforce for their own benefit. And you have to explain these things to her, okay? And here's something else that you have to hit her with, and this is going to be a hard lesson, but you will have to hit her with this when you're both calm, you both have had like an intimate conversation that, you know how sometimes with somebody in your family, you, for whatever reason, you wind up talking, you talk for like an hour about different things, sort of like catch up, right? And, it's late at night and you're having a coffee together or tea or a drink or whatever. And you have these long conversations and you talk about different things that are important to both of you and whatnot, right? And in that conversation, because it's gone on for an hour or so, you've remembered why you trust one another, right? And when you get to that moment with your daughter, and you'll have plenty of those opportunities, you have to tell her, look, here, I'm saying this not out of anger or anything, but if you lose your virginity thoughtlessly, stupidly, I'll be extremely disappointed in you. And that's something that you got to keep in mind, by the way, disappointment. Because one thing is when your parent yells at you, another thing is when they are disappointed in you. And we all know that feeling, right? Oh yeah, mom yelled at me and she yelled at me for like an hour and I'm grounded, and you're like, oh, that's fine. But then, you come to your friends and say, oh man, my mom was disappointed. And we know that there's a vast difference. One is we just broke a rule. The other is that our parent thinks less of us, which is very, very different. You tell your daughter that if she thoughtlessly loses her virginity, just like throws it away just randomly, you're going to be extremely disappointed. You will think less of her. Tell her, okay? Tell her, mark that line. And tell her that you're not going to tell her how to live her life, okay? Because soon enough, she's going to be an adult and she's going to have to learn to live her life by herself. But you tell her that if she throws away her virginity thoughtlessly in some drunken party at some fraternity or some shit like that, you will think less of her. You will think that she is less of a woman than you thought she was. Okay? You tell her that. And you tell her too, if the opportunity arises in that moment or some other moment, but whenever it arises, and again, in a calm way, but like a very serious way, in a way that she knows that you're not fucking around. And not in a way that you're throwing a temper tantrum, but rather you're just saying this is how it is. These are the rules of the house. You tell her that if she becomes like a slut, you're going to reject her. That it would hurt you too much to have such a daughter. Mm-hmm. It would be no different if she became a drug addict. You would just simply reject her. And if she says no, you say no. Sorry, non-negotiable. Okay, because I don't care. Because it would be too painful. You tell her. What'll happen? More likely than not, that you won't even have to tell her. If you've been inculcating this notion of you being somebody that she depends on, okay, that your judgment is important, your good opinion of her is important to her, it's unlikely that she'll become a slut. You won't even have to, say this explicitly. Perhaps the virginity thing, yes, but certainly not the slut thing. If you've raised her to really depend on your judgment and depend on you, because she'll know it without you having to tell her, because she'll have internalized the lesson, okay? I suppose I'm telling you this for those guys who have like an older daughter, that is, she's like pre-puberty or just starting puberty, and they're trying to negotiate the situation. Well, if you show her those pictures of slatternly girls, of sluts, and along with the pictures of the meth addicts, and basically blur the distinction between the two, yeah, she'll get the point. She'll get the point. Okay. But you want that feeling, you want her rather to have that feeling that your disappointment, your disapproval is forever, okay? And that there's no going back on it. That there's a difference between her fucking up and doing something stupid, crashing a car or something like that. That's just stupid. And it's no big deal. So long as, hopefully she's not harmed, of course, but you know what I mean. But acting in a way, taking a really, really bad decision is just like, no, okay? You got to make that clear. You have to make these red lines. And also what's, of course, important is that, see, they can't be like arbitrary, like they popped up from, one day to the next. No, it has to be like a long, slow process that she knows this. And again, this long, slow process, because in that long, slow process, she learns to depend on you. If she doesn't depend on you and doesn't think much of you, and you from, one day to the next, impose these limits, she's going to just blow you off. She's not going to care. But it's been a long, slow process of you raising her right. And you make it clear that you have certain red lines and that if she crosses them, it's over. You know, she's not going to cross them. She's not even going to come close. Okay. She'll be way too scared to get even close to them. You see? Okay. Now, when she's post-puberty, that's 16 to 20, teach her that all the attention she is getting from people is because she is young and fertile, which is signaled by her sexual attractiveness, and that all this attention will fade by the time she's 32, 35. Girls are not told this. They have no fucking idea. They just think that people are nice to them. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, they might realize that some guy wants to fuck them, you know, but they won't realize that older people, both men and women, treat them so nicely because it's an inbuilt instinct that human beings have. When we human beings see a young, sexually attractive girl, we realize that she's fertile, and therefore we want to take care of her because she represents the future of the species. It's a natural state of affairs. And this crosses all ethnic groups, by the way. You know, you're some guy from Northern Europe and you see some African girl of, you know, 17, 21, around that age, right? And you're going to have the exact same feeling as if you were, you know, an African male, you know, in his 70s, seeing some, you know, Chinese girl who's, you know, 17 to 21. It's a built-in human thing. We automatically value a fertile young woman more than anybody else because she represents the future of the species. And so we want to take care of her. We want to take care of her. We want to make sure that nothing happens to her. And of course, we give her more attention, an inordinate amount of attention. And young girls, most young girls, they do not realize this because nobody tells them. They just think that people give them all this attention because of their inherent qualities. They don't realize that it has nothing to do with their inherent qualities and everything to do that their bodies are screaming to the world that they are ready to make babies. That's what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's something, it's kind of like a tragedy that nobody clues in these girls. Because what happens, of course, is that these girls, they just keep on having a good time during their 20s, and then they hit their 30s, and all of a sudden the attention is gone because there's that moment, well, what we call the wall in the pickup artist community. I'm not a pickup artist, but you know what I mean? That moment when all of a sudden the switch gets flipped and they're no longer that attractive. They're older. They're an older woman. And they don't have that freshness, that fertility of the young girl. And it's so noticeable. You can just look at a picture of a girl, okay, of a woman rather, and you could say, oh yeah, she doesn't have it. It is what fertility, that thing, and you know it, okay. And what's weird, what's completely bizarre, is a lot of times you'll see some woman, a picture of some woman. She's 32, right, and you're like, I wouldn't bang her. No, I mean, if I have to work to bang her, now fuck that. And it'll turn out that that girl at 32, she's infertile. Because we sense it just from looking at her. We know she's not fertile anymore, okay? Which makes complete sense. We're animals. There are all kinds of senses that we have that our science has yet to explain or determine, but that we naturally react to. You call them pheromones. Yeah, fine. But what happens in a picture? You know, in a picture, you look at a picture of a girl in a picture and you're like, nah, I wouldn't bang her because she's not fertile, because you know it just by looking at her. And there are subtle cues, so subtle that only now with AI and photo recognition technology are they realizing, oh yeah, there's a famous experiment, a result of something that they were doing in China of just scanning pictures of people, right? And they discovered the AI, they could predict who was a criminal with 72% accuracy. And what was creepy was that it could predict people who had yet to commit the crime just from their picture. They could see there were elements in their face, physiognomy, that told the AI that, yeah, this is a criminal or he's going to be a criminal. Shocking, yeah. So if an AI can figure that out, what about people? We spend our entire lives looking at the faces of other people
So we study other people's faces and we realize things. A lot of times we see things in somebody else's faces before they even say a word. And we have no way of knowing that we know, but we know, and it's true. Yeah. So anyway, the point, going back to, sorry about that little divergence there, that what you call it. But anyway, the point, you got to teach your daughter that all this attention is not because of her. You got to teach her. You got to ground her. You got to teach her some humility. And the easy way to do it is to point to older women and how nobody pays attention to them, even when they're attractive older women, but nobody pays attention to them. Why? Because they're not fertile. And point also to young men and compare them to older successful men. Point to some young guy. He's 25, he's skinny, good looking, in shape, but he seems kind of pathetic compared to some guy who's 45 and who might have a little bit of a paunch, but he seems like he's got his shit together and he seems a lot more attractive. Why? Because it's the inverse with guys. And explain that dynamic to her so that she understands, because nobody's going to teach her. Teach her also that society is actively trying to manipulate her in different directions for the benefit of the leaders, not for her benefit. Explain, for instance, the whole women in science thing. The typical example, for me, I think that's the best example. You explain that to a girl who's in post-puberty, 16, 20 years old, or a college girl. You explain that the whole purpose of women in science and why it's financed by companies like Google and Facebook is because they want more engineers, software designers, so as to drive down the price of labor. And that's why they're bringing in all these Indian programmers with H-1B visas and such. And why back in 2012, the Justice Department had a big lawsuit against a bunch of them, including George Lucas and Steve Jobs. That's got brushed under the, swept under the carpet, that they colluded to spend money to lobby for more H-1B visas, and they agreed within each other that they weren't going to try to hire away their engineers, and they put like ceilings to their pay for these different engineers and software designers. Yeah, they colluded. And this is a Justice Department investigation back in 2012. When St. Steve was dying, he was in a shitload of trouble because of this shit, criminal trouble. And of course, it all went away because they got paid off. But, it's truth. You got to tell her this. Tell your daughter how so much of shit is going on, not for her benefit, but for the benefit of others. Now, the final thing you got to teach her when she's post-puberty, when she's, like before she goes to college or in your first years of college, you've got to tell her her window of fertility is limited. And that to become a mother, she should find a man before she is 25 and start a family, i.e. have her first kid, before she's 27. Yeah, get cracking, because late, it'll be too late. And something I didn't put down here on my outline, but show her all these pathetic women who froze their eggs and did all these heroic measures, figuring that they could easily postpone having children, and how it all went tits up. Sorry for the pun, but it did. There's this famous woman who was on the cover of the New York Times Magazine, and how she was like going to have it all. I forget the exact title, but she froze her eggs, right? With the expectation that later in her 40s, when she was ready to settle down, she'd have kids, right? Anyway, her 40s rolled around and no man, no nothing. And so she finally decided, fuck it, I'm going to be a single mother. And she went to check up on her frozen eggs, and she had like a dozen frozen or something like that. And several of them had been destroyed in the freezing process, and some others, they tried to fertilize them. It didn't take. And then finally she was left with like 3 fertilized eggs, and they all failed. And she was left with nothing. And she had spent $60,000 for freezing her eggs and all this shit. And nothing came of it. It was all for nothing. And I thought that was so goddamn funny and tragic. I mean, funny, she did not get what she wanted. Tragic because this poor woman had been sold. She'd been fooled. And you tell that to your daughter. You show her those examples. So much of the problem with young women today is not that they're stupid. It's not that they are willful. It's that nobody has told them. See? It's as simple as that. Nobody has told them that this is how it is. And because nobody has told them, they go through life thinking that they can have it all. They don't realize that there is such a thing as cost of opportunity. They go through life thinking they can have it all, they can postpone having children, have a great career and all the rest of it, and it all goes tits up. And on top of that, they are taught that this great career is something that they must have, and they are all so fucking unhappy. In Ireland, a few years ago, they did some study. They looked at all these women who had to quit their jobs, their well-paying jobs, in order to care for a family member because of some medical emergency that the family member had. Maybe a parent, maybe a sibling, maybe a spouse, it didn't matter. And I checked up on these women a year later, a year after they'd quit their job. 2/3 of them wanted to stay and felt happier than they had ever been in their lives. Only 1/3 wanted to go back to work. It was something like 80 something, almost 90% of them said that they felt happier than ever before in their lives. Why? Because these women had quit their jobs and in order to care for some family member. And see, women get natural satisfaction from caring from family members. You got to keep in mind something. I've done several videos on the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is the fallacy of like throwing good money after bad. You're at the roulette table and you bet on red. You lose it. And so you figure, well, this time I'm going to win. And you bet on red again and you lose again. And so this time, the third time, you bet even more money on red. That's the sunk cost fallacy. You keep on betting on something. Right? Now, what happens is I say, why does this bias arise? Why is it that we are hardwired for this bias? Because we do it in all kinds of things. And, you know, there's that famous saying attributed to Albert Einstein that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, that's basically from the sunk cost fallacy. Where does that come from? It comes from the fact that, see, people, human beings, and most especially women, when they care for something or someone, they develop feelings for that someone. And the more that they care for that person, the stronger their emotions. And that's why, for instance, a woman who has a miscarriage, she'll be very blue and down about it, but it's not going to destroy her. A woman who loses her 7-year-old child to disease, cancer, whatnot, she'll be destroyed. Because you see, the more a woman cares for somebody, the more they love them. That's a natural human thing. Okay? And it's the reason for the sunk cost fallacy. Because we human beings, men and women, the more we care about something, the more we invest in it. See? We care about our children and we invest in them, our time, our effort, our attention. And what happens? Because we invest more time and effort and attention into them, the children are more likely to survive and flourish. And so it becomes a naturally reinforcing cycle, positive feedback loop. The more time and effort we invest in the child, the more likely they will survive. And so this is how evolution has built into us the sunk cost fallacy, which doesn't work in a whole bunch of areas of life. But insofar as raising children, it does work. The more you care for a child, the more likely that child will survive. And so women, most especially, have this issue of the sunk cost fallacy precisely because they are the sex more likely to take care of the child. See? That's why women fall for the sunk cost fallacy more than men, by the way. But anyway, you gotta explain to her that her fertility window is brief. Her ability to attract the right guy is going to be brief. You have to bring up how you know because of experience and remind her, and here's the key point, remind her of all the times you pushed her into something she initially didn't want to do, but that she later realized she liked and that you were right to push her. Okay? And that's the whole issue of investing and building that trust. Have her trust your judgment so that at the right time, when it's really important, which it will be in her early 20s, you can say, listen, how many times have I pushed you into do something? Remember when you did that archery shit? You didn't want to do it. And I pushed you along and then finally you love it, right? You've been doing it for 20 years or however long. You gotta pull all those stops out, see, to make sure that she doesn't take the wrong path. Because what happens with girls, well, with all young people really, but especially with girls, is that there comes a moment that they don't know what to do or where to go with their whole lives. They just don't know where to go. Okay. And those periods, especially the periods, those years when they're in college, they are extremely impressionable. And our society, for the economic benefit of the wealthy, pushes them into employment that does not satisfy them. Well, see, you have to be the parent who is the one that she turns to for guidance. See? And you got to build that shit up. And it takes years, it takes decades. Okay. And just because you're doing it for a couple of months doesn't mean that it's going to take. You see what I'm saying? I mean, all these lessons, these are really, I mean, if you haven't had a kid yet, this is what you want to do. And you got to understand that it's going to be a process of years of her learning to trust you. Okay. Because she will inherently trust you, but there's going to be that natural period in her adolescence where she will want to break away from you. It's a natural thing. But when she sort of like ends this, this period of puberty and is in the post-puberty phase, she has to be able to trust on you, depend on you. Because what will happen is that the older she gets, the more she will trust in you. Okay? Because the older she gets, the more you will see that you are right about a lot of things. And the more she will realize, why on earth would my dad say something to my detriment? My dad only wants what's best for me long term. And so if you've been a good father, as she gets older, the more she trusts you. But it's going to be those key years of puberty and post-puberty. And you have to build up to them so that in those years, she doesn't make the bad choices that will lead her to become a slut, that will lead her to pursue a foolish career that will give her no satisfaction. See? And by the way, one of the things I failed to mention in this whole presentation, I'm winding down here, is that, see, when you interact with your daughter, you have to treat her like a buddy. Okay? I mean, you love her, she's your daughter, yeah, but you want to treat her on a mental level like your buddy. Okay? You have to think of her not that she's your little princess. No. You have to think of her as like your little pal who doesn't know a shitload, and you know a lot more, but is not stupid. It's a key issue. And you have to build that rapport in the little interactions, the little 5 minutes here and there. Okay? Yeah. The whole point is to get her accustomed to the idea that you are right on the long-term issues, and that she should trust you insofar as your long-term judgment. That's the whole point of raising a daughter. Okay? Every time she realizes you were right about something she resisted initially, emphasize how you were right, but don't crow. Okay? This isn't a fucking competition. This isn't like, yeah, I fucking won. I was right. You're wrong. No, don't do that, you fucking idiot. What you want to do is you want to emphasize that you were right because you are older and know better because of experience, not because you're smarter. Make that really, really fucking clear. I mean, when I talk to you guys, right, I emphasize that all the time. I know a lot of shit, not because I'm smarter, but because I've been around longer. I've seen more shit. And so I can tell you about some shit, because I was there, I saw it. Or I've seen it so many fucking times that, it's routine at this point. And a lot of guys are like, Jesus, you're so fucking smart. I'm not fucking smart at all. I'm pretty much a fucking idiot. People who know me know that I'm a fucking idiot. But I know a lot because I've seen more. You got to get her used to that notion that you know better, not because you're smarter, but because you've been around longer. You've seen more, and you've seen how the story ends. That's the key issue. Make it really, really fucking clear that you know how the story ends, and that's why you're telling her, so that she can avoid that fate. Yeah. So anyway, here concludes my presentation. Give me just a minute. I just have to
dash off here to turn on the lights. It'll take me just a second. Hang on a second. Sorry, guys. I was just what you call it? Had to go off. I should have fucking given you guys the StreamYard's link. I'm putting in the comment section right now. That's the StreamYard links if you have any questions or comments. And going back to this presentation, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that the points I raised made sense to you guys. That how can I put it? I guess that's the key issue, that women are not, I mean, girls rather, your daughter, she's not stupid. No matter how young she might happen to be, she's smart. Right? She just doesn't know. And the other thing too, I have to emphasize is how our society keeps girls and boys too from being told how life is. Okay? They're kept in a state of ignorance. And because of this ignorant state, they fuck it up. They fuck up their lives. So anyway, let me bring on Kadeem Sar. Kadeem Sar, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Coach? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's up? What's on your mind?
What's up, man? I have a couple questions. So you mentioned earlier about the dehumanization aspect that you want your daughter to avoid when associating with sex. How would you translate that if you had a son? Because you mentioned things in the past, for instance, like it's cool for, not cool, but it's okay if, for instance, to get an escort. You know, I would assume for guys, we tend to have.
I'll tell you right now, I'm going to skip that question right now, because I think that next week we know what the subject is, how to raise a son. So
got you.
I'll just talk about it. So you're just going to have to wait around till next week, rather.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Sorry, because I know your question is completely valid.
Yeah.
But to get into it now, and I think that right now mentally I'm so locked into just daughters that it would take me a while to sort of like figure out an answer to that. And I figure, why bother figuring out an answer? I'll just do that one next year. Hit me. I mean, chat. Hit me with a +1 if you think that you wanna see next week a webinar called "How to Raise a Son." I'll wait for chat to catch up. Mm-hmm. But Kadeem, I assume that you'd prefer that too, right?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Because it's 50-50. You don't know what you're gonna get, so.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So it'll be. I'll do it for next week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? You said you had another question.
Yeah, it's just the topic of wanting to have a kid in general, and I've been flirting with the idea of getting a vasectomy.
Oh,
and don't.
How old are you?
20. I'm about to be 26.
No, you're way too young. Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you right now. Vasectomies are potentially reversible, but actually the reversing vasectomy is a lot more of a hassle than getting it. It's like tattoos, right? And they're not 100% effective. And I'll tell you right now, when I was 26, I didn't have any thought of having a kid. And when you hit your 40s, you're going to get baby rabies. Okay. And so don't fuck around. Don't fuck around on that. Okay.
Okay.
And if some girl you're with says that, you have to have a vasectomy, swap the girl, get a different one. Okay. I'll tell you that right now. You don't want to mess with your balls. Okay. You don't want to mess with your ability to reproduce. And when you're 26, you don't know shit about wanting to have a family. And when you're in your 40s, and if you've had a vasectomy and you definitely can't reverse it, or you try to get it reversed and it doesn't take or whatever, you're going to be brokenhearted. George Clooney, right? He had a vasectomy. Mm-hmm. He thought he would never get married, have a kid, and here he is, married with a couple of kids. I think a couple of kids. I don't really know. I don't pay attention, but I did pay attention when I found out about that. That was pretty funny. Yeah, he was like the eternal bachelor until he found the woman, and it's not that he found the woman. He must have gotten baby rabies. He must have gotten this sense, and all guys get it.
of like, shit, I want a kid. I want a kid. I want a kid of my own. Every guy gets it. Okay. So yeah, don't do it. Anything else on your mind, Kadeem?
No, thank you.
Thank you, man. Take it easy.
You too.
Let me see now. It's Richard. How's it going, Richard?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind?
That was a very good presentation. I really liked it. Yeah.
I'm glad.
I do have a question that is, you've been in a book publishing industry, right? What do you think of publishing children books in Amazon Marketplace in English, Spanish, or in German languages?
I have no idea of that business. Okay. I mean, none whatsoever, because the children's book business is completely different from the adult trade publishing business. So I have no idea. I could not tell you.
Okay. I do have one question also.
Sure.
How much do you know about the Chinese people? Like, is it a good idea of teaching Chinese people English?
What do you mean, like English as a second language?
Yeah.
I understand that that's a business I did when I was like 19. I did it for like 3 years. And I think it's a really, really good occupation because it teaches you to speak to people in public, and it gives you a lot of confidence in terms as far as public speaking is concerned. Now, doing it in China, I have no idea either, because I did it in Chile. I did it because I was a bum. I'd been kicked out of university twice because I was too young. And I've mentioned this before. I went to university when I was 17. No, I turned 18 at the beginning of my first year of university. And I just chased girls and had a good time, and I got kicked out. And then the second time, I just did the same thing. I just chased girls, partied, and got kicked out. And so by 1988, my mom basically gave me the ultimatum, if you're not going to be studying, you're going to be working, or I'm going to kick you out of the house. And so I started working, and that got my shit together. But I worked as an English teacher for 3 years, and it was a great experience. I learned a great deal, public speaking, and it gave me a lot of confidence, and I highly recommend it. Now, teaching in China, I have no idea.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for being on, man. I appreciate it. Jeff, how's it going?
Hey, sir. How's it going, Coach?
Pretty good. What's on your mind?
Just a couple comments, man. I just want to say a big thanks. Obviously, my fiance started tuning into you a little recently when she caught me listening, and you completely red-pilled her, and we actually got her off birth control, and we're dying to have some kids pretty recently. So thank you very much.
Yeah, that's wonderful news. Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
Die hard. So I just kind of want to get your perspective. I'm 40. She's a lot younger than me. She'll be turning 26 soon. Is it what were kind of your experiences as just being an older dad, and what do you worry about? Like you said, by the time my kids are getting out of high school, I'm going to be damn near 60.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't worry about that. See, I think that a lot of guys are like, oh, I'm too old to have kids. That's stupid. You're never too old to have kids. Nobody is too old to have kids unless they're physically unable to have kids, which is the great tragedy for women, because women after the age of 36, their chances of conceiving naturally fall precipitously, whereas a guy can easily conceive into his old age. And also remember, a lot of feminists say that, oh, older men, their kids have a 30% more chance of being born autistic, right? Yeah, that's true. But see, the chances of having a kid who's autistic because of the father is still infinitesimal. Okay. So 30% more likely is, 30% of a very small probability. So don't worry about it. Right. So don't worry about any of that bullshit. Guys can have kids until they're own. Look at Picasso. He had a kid when he was 90. Okay. So I think it was 90. Or extremely old. But anyway, so don't worry about that. The advantages of having kids when you're older is that you're going to be a lot more patient, and you're going to be thinking a lot more long-term, and you'll put up with a lot of shit that when you were younger, you wouldn't have put up with because you would have been too impatient. But when you're older, you realize a lot of times the bullshit that pops up is not really important, and that you just, the smart thing is just ignore it. Okay.
use your age and experience and your greater calmness to your advantage. That's what I would recommend. See?
Sounds good.
And
Kind of a
also,
follow up on.
yeah,
I
and also,
posted in the.
sorry, I forgot to mention. And also, don't try to pretend to be a young dad. You're an older guy. Act that way, and act that way, and with authority. And another thing, when I say authority, that doesn't mean being arbitrary. That doesn't mean just saying, okay, this is how it is. No, somebody in authority, how does he act? He says, well, this is how it is. And it's the way this is because of these 5 reasons, and gives the reasons. No problem, see? And when he's wrong, the guy with authority say, oh, I fucked up. I was wrong. I'm sorry. We're going to do this instead. Yeah, you see my point. An older guy is going to have a confidence that will be very reassuring, especially to a young wife and young children. Okay? Don't pretend to be 22. Act your age. It'll be to your benefit. Okay?
Gotcha.
You had another question. What was it?
Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts about maybe just in general about birth control. I've been so indoctrinated. I think everyone is. It's just such the norm in society now. But when we step back, it is a very new phenomenon. And I just kind of wonder what it's doing to society and where we're going as a species. I mean, I found out my fiance, she had been on birth control since 14. And ever since she got off it, she's like, I feel feminine. I feel so much better. I feel sex. It might be placebo effect, but
no, it's not, because they're hormones. The birth control pills are hormones, and they are fucking with her head. And they've been fucking with her head since she was 14, and she's 26 now. So yeah, 12 years. So yeah, and so she probably does feel a lot more feminine and a lot sexier and a lot better about herself. Yeah. And I think a lot of problems that we have in our contemporary society, especially insofar as women are concerned, is probably the result of birth control pills. But we don't want to admit it, because a lot of people benefit from birth control pills, and a lot of people, especially in the labor market, get a lot of benefits out of women on the birth control pill. Yeah. Is she listening to this broadcast right now?
no, she's over at her parents' house right now, but she'll be on next week. She's done.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk to her if she has a question, or something that she wants to talk about. Bring her on, and I'm happy to talk about it.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Coach. Have a good one.
No problem. You too. Take it easy, man. Let me see. Russell. How's it going, Russell?
Hey, Coach. All is well. My question for you is that so I recently had a conversation with my stepfather, and it was one of those conversations of how you feel I messed up your life, and the number one thing I jumped to was I told him that he never protected me, from my mom's nuttiness or my sister's wildness, and no, there's this one instance I wanted to tell you that I was 4 or 5 years old, and basically my mom was berating him. Like, she basically put him against the wall and was just machine gunning all of these problems with him. And you do this wrong, and you do that wrong. And I actually walked up behind my mom. I walloped her in the butt, and then I ran away. And so I thought that my mom was going to come in there and just kill me for doing that. But I know that the only reason why she didn't wallop me was that he stepped in and he prevented her from doing that. So I guess my question for you is how do you deal with how do you debunk feminism without coming off as basically a rude, angry asshole?
How do you debunk feminism without being a rude asshole?
Yeah.
Well, you see, the best way to debunk something is to ask pointed questions and get the person you're speaking to answer them, and from their mouths to realize, oh yeah, this is wrong. See? Like, for instance, you can ask a simple question with feminism. Why is feminist? They always say that they want women to have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But how come being a homemaker is not one of those choices?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is a fairly simple question, very straightforward. Why is it that a woman's choice is always to abort a child and not to have one? Why does feminism never
fight for mothers' rights, maternity leave and stuff like that. They never do. Why?
Mhm.
Ask that question.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
when they start like bullshitting you, because there are some who are going to try to bullshit you, and you don't argue. You say, come on. You know that answer is kind of bullshitty, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
especially when you're having like an intimate one-on-one conversation, people are going to be a lot more reluctant to give bullshit, because people bullshit when there's an audience, or they perceive there's an audience. That's why on social media, everybody perceives themselves to be the focus of an audience. But when you're having a one-on-one, face-to-face conversation, there's nobody around, no cameras, no social media, none of that shit. People are a lot more honest. And that's where you
Mhm.
catch them. And that's where you turn them around. But you don't do it by browbeating them. You don't do it by yelling
Mhm.
at them.
Right.
You
Right.
ask
Right.
them
Right.
questions.
Mhm.
Ask them questions, and they'll give you the answers, and the answer will just sit there, making them look foolish. And eventually, they'll have to say, "Well, yeah, maybe you're right." You see, that's how
Mhm.
you do it.
Got it. Got it.
Anything else on your mind?
Yeah. So just one other question. It's kind of a two-pointer. So I thought that by sticking with religious girls, that religious girls would be a cut above your regular women, but I've
Yeah.
noticed that they're like the sluttiest women out there. I mean, just like they are into the kinkiest, nastiest stuff out there, but then they go to church and say, oh please Lord, please forgive me, thank you
Okay,
Jesus.
that might be where you're living. Okay, that's not in every
Mhm.
country or even every place in the United States. Okay, but no,
Okay.
I'm not doubting you. I'm not doubting you. Okay,
Mhm.
but that is
Mhm.
not the usual kind of situation.
Okay.
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 Okay. No, but then, Coach, right. So my question is really, how do you feel about giving a woman oral sex? Because I had an FB situation, and the reason why we broke up was because I refused to give her oral sex. Like I said, no, that's
Well,
gross
I
and
mean,
nasty, and I
look,
refuse.
that kind of thing. Some guys like it, some don't. Okay, I'm certainly not going to discuss my own proclivities, right? But some
Okay.
guys like it, some don't. I don't think it means anything. Okay,
Okay.
I don't think that, oh, you're like super masculine or super effeminate if you do it or don't do it. No, I don't think it works that way.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have any opinion one way or the other. Yeah.
Got it.
So
Thanks, Coach.
anyway, anything
Appreciate it.
else? Oh, my pleasure, man. Take it easy, Russell. Talk to you soon. John, how's it going?
Hi, good. You hear me?
What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, first of all, you said you have daughter that is 7, yes?
Hmm?
So how can you know all this stuff?
Oh, because I've paid attention to like in my own family, my extended family. Like my mother is the oldest one of the oldest child of an oldest child, and so my grandmother's younger siblings had a bunch of children who were roughly my age or a little bit older, and so I watched them all develop, and so like just watching all these different people develop over the years. And also what's happened is that just over the years, just seeing different people and different parenting styles. Like for instance, I paid attention to the parenting styles, or not so much I paid attention, but I saw the parenting styles of my classmates in all the schools that I went to, because I went to what was it, 13 schools in 10 years of schooling. And so I saw like a bunch of my peers and their parents and how they interacted and so forth. And I saw the successful parents and the unsuccessful parents. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just an experience. Again, it's not that I'm smarter. It's just seen more, experienced more. So, yeah, that's the perspective I have. Oh, and by the way,
Okay.
I put on screen this guy Ed Lofton's comment. He says, "I'm in my late 50s, visiting the local university gym, looking for a young student to wife up and have babies. Wish me good luck." Good luck, Ed. Good luck, and the more
Good
power to
luck.
you. Yeah. Anyway, what else is on your mind, John?
Just one, can you somehow share this presentation, because it can be good to have it?
Yeah. The recording will be posted on Patreon. Yeah, for the
Yeah,
webinar.
but I
series?
mean just these slides.
Oh, the slides.
Yeah.
Oh, I unfortunately on this platform I can't pass them around. I wish I could. Unfortunately, I can't. Okay, but all you have to do is just take screenshots of it and on a computer once it's posted, and you'll have them there. You know, so it's basically the same thing.
Okay. So
Okay.
that's all.
Okay, great talking to you, John. Thanks for being on. Take it easy.
Thanks.
Hey, Liko, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, coach?
What's on your mind, my man?
So, I'm
Hello?
21. Hello, can you hear me?
You're all roboting. You're roboting like crazy. I can barely hear you. Are you there?
Crap, I might have bad service. Might just catch you on the next
there
one.
you're better. No. Now you're better. You cleared up. Typical. But anyway, I'm sorry. What was your question?
Alright. So, from the last stream, you were talking a lot about the state of the world and all these like things going on, like worldwide, essentially. Just really knowledgeable, and I was wondering where you derive your information. Like, where do you go to find all of this?
Okay, I just
how do you educate yourself?
Make it up. What? How do I educate myself?
Yeah.
Well, you do have to keep in mind that I basically retired. I basically retired in 2016. So, there's just a lot of jerking off. And between the jerking off, I read the news, watch the news, and pay attention to it. And so, you pick up stuff here and there. The best news source that I found is Zero Hedge, zerohedge.com. That's the best news source because pretty much everything that's going on in the world winds up popping up on Zero Hedge. And it's this it's basically a blog, a news blog that has like the format like from the fucking 1990s practically, right? I mean, I started reading Zero Hedge back in 2008, and even then it was out of date, their format. And they've kept the same damn format, right? Because everybody who's a fan of Zero Hedge loves that format for some reason. And so the times they've tried to tweak the format, people have rebelled. So they stick with that format. Everybody fucking loves them. And they cover the news. They cover shit. It's news aggregation and also have their own commentary. And it's terrific. I pay attention to that, and I also pay attention to Tucker Carlson. I watch his show just about every morning because, see, what I love about Tucker Carlson is that, they call him a fascist, blah, blah. But the thing is, he's not a fascist. What it is that he just asks questions. And that's what I like about him. See? Because yes, he does have a conservative tilt, but what happens, what makes him really powerful, and what really drives the left up the bend, off the rails rather, is that he's just pointing things out and asking sensible questions, commonsensical questions. He's not trying to do any kind of gotcha. He's just asking, well, if we do this, this is going to lead to all kinds of terrible consequences, isn't it? And it is, and that's what bothers people on the left because he's right. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like what you say, if it can't hold the scrutiny, right? And he's applying scrutiny. I see.
Exactly. Something that's true, you can scrutinize it all day. It's still going to be true. And something that's false, you start scrutinizing it and people start screaming. Why do they scream? Because they know it's false. Like what's going on now in Arizona, right? The Republicans want to audit the vote. And there are something like 70 lawyers trying to, from the Democratic side, trying to prevent the audit of the vote. What's that tell you? That the vote was fraudulent. Yeah, because if it was on the up and up, they'd be like, sure, audit it all you want. The result ain't going to change. See? The only reason that you have 70 attorneys fighting tooth and nail to prevent an audit is because they know it's fraudulent. See? And so that's the key issue. Whenever anybody screams at you for pointing something out or questioning anything, it's because they know that they're wrong. And the question will show that they're wrong. See? Right. So, yeah. So anyway, going back to your question, I mean, like, how am I informed? Well, I pay attention. And I like to study history, and I know quite a bit of history. I mean, I studied history. I got my degree in history, and history and philosophy. I got like a double major.
I think that's a good bridge, real quick, into my second question. So I'm 21. I'm in the military currently, and
Mhm.
so when I get out,
Officer
right,
or enlisted?
enlisted.
Okay.
I don't think I have the stomach for officer. I mean, I could, but
Okay. No, that's perfectly fine. But anyway, what's your point?
so
Is
my
it
point is, I'm gonna have the option, right, to go to college.
I'm sorry, you're
Whatever.
breaking up. What branch are
All right,
you
hold
in?
on. I'm in the Air Force.
Okay, your Air Force, and what's on? What do you think?
So what I'm thinking is, college is kind of a mess right now, right? It's kind of getting less and less worth it to go. But seeing as I can go for basically no cost, should I even bother going with it, or should I just
Well, see, you want
bypass it?
to. Okay, the accreditation will be useful in any profession that you need in the future, and that need for that accreditation, it's not going away anytime soon. That's the reality. And there are a lot of jobs that they simply will not even look at your resume without a college degree, and that's unfair, but that's the reality. Now, you want to ask yourself, what kind of life do you want to lead? What kind of profession do you want? I mean, if you want to become a doctor, say, you need that BA degree. It's stupid, it's a waste of time, but you need it, and that's life. But if you want to work in some other profession, say you want to be a welder, you don't need a BA. You just go to welding school or whatever the fuck, in any kind of trade, right? Now, if you want to be in business for yourself, okay, and pursue some business, well, what you want to do is whatever that business is, you want to get on you want to learn about that business. And there it depends if you need a BA or not. See, I mean, like for instance, if you want to get into, I don't know, the flower business, say. So to get into the flower business, you want to have a string of shops that sell flowers. I'm just making something up. This is the only thing I could think of, right? And so you want to learn how to grow flowers. You want to work at a flower shop. You want to work at a greenhouse or whatever the fuck. Yeah. But if you want to have an engineering firm, well, you got to get a BA in engineering, you see? So it depends what you want to do with your life. Now, if you're not sure what to do with your life, and you want to keep your options open, going into the military was pretty smart because now you can get the GI Bill, and that could essentially pay for your college education. Am I right?
Right. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Is I don't really know what I want to do
So,
yet, and it worries me because I
yeah,
remember a talk that you gave where you talked about don't stay options open for too long. Eventually, you got to choose something.
yeah, you gotta you roboted there at the end, but yeah, you basically have to choose. Okay. You basically have to determine what you want to do with your life and not be an eternal student, because that's just no way to live. To be endlessly taking classes and getting nothing out of life. I mean, you're not going to go into debt, but you're just postponing your life. So you don't want to do that. You have to figure out what you really enjoy doing and figure out a way that you can get paid to do that. Okay. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Right.
That's how I have always lived my life. In every business that I've done, except one business, every business I've ever done, I got into it because I enjoyed it. And I tried to figure out a way to make money off of it so that it would be worth my while. Oops. Oh, there you are. You're back again. Good. You want to, like for instance, when I started getting into writing, I wanted to figure out how to make money off of it, and Hollywood seemed the quickest way, the least amount of effort for the most amount of money. And then in just everything I've ever done, it's always been the same way. The one time I didn't do that was back in 2014 that I got involved in real estate, because before that I was involved in the solar panel business, solar energy production business. And in 2014, I had the opportunity to get involved in building some parking structures in Santiago. And I would earn a shit ton of money in something that I kind of thought was incredibly boring, and it was, but I make fuck you money, which is the whole point of it. And that's why I did it. Okay. But that was very specific, and it was only like 2 years. And at the time I was a 46-year-old man, And so I knew more or less what I was getting involved in, that I was just going to do that shit, make a shit ton of money, and sayonara. You know what I mean? And so that's why I did it. But that's the one time in my entire life that I did something strictly for the money. You're a young guy. You want to be just trying out everything. And the thing you got to do is say yes to any opportunity. If anybody calls you up, for some random ass business or whatever the fuck, you say yes. Don't second guess it. Don't think it. Don't think it. Just go, because see, you're 21. The worst that can fucking happen to you is, you wasted some time, but you're going to gain shitloads of experience. So that's why you always say yes to any opportunity that comes your way when you're 21. Any opportunity, you say yes and just dive in. And if you crash and burn, so what? Because it's not really going to affect your life. Okay? And you're going to gain so much experience, especially from the failures. Okay? So don't be afraid. Just jump in. I hope this helps you out, man.
Yeah, big time. Thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Catch you next week. Okay. Let me see. Owen, how's it going, Owen?
Good, Coach. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind, my man?
My question is it a bad idea to have a family in your 30s when you're a little bit younger? And what kind of advice would you have for younger guys?
No, you have kids when you feel like it, okay? But don't force it. How can I put it? If you're in your 20s or 30s and you find some girl and you guys are just crazy about each other, and more importantly, you have the same life goals, then have kids, no question. But if you're with some girl and you're not 100% on her, or you're not 100% on the relationship, perhaps, don't push it, okay? Just don't push it. Yeah. Look, you'll know when it's time. Your body, your whatever, your hindbrain, whatever you want to call it, it's going to tell you it's time, and you'll know. Okay. And you'll know, and you'll be eager. Okay. And sometimes that happens when you're younger, sometimes when it's older, but you don't have to worry about it. You'll just know. I know that that's very vague and kind of unhelpful, but guys who are older, who have gone through that, they know, they'll nod along and say that, yeah, it's just sort of like, and you just, yeah. If you're not sure about a girl, about having babies with a girl, that means no automatically. Okay. Know that. See? And when there is doubt, there is no doubt. When you're doubtful about some woman, that means that you know that there's something about her that you don't want to have a kid with her. Okay? And don't question. Okay? When there is doubt, there is no doubt. Tattoo that on the inside of your skull. Okay?
All right.
But tattoo it for real, okay? Because tattoos are for fools. Anyway, and anything else on your mind?
No, that's all. Simple question. Thank you for your time. Yeah. That was a really great show, too.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate it. Take it easy, Owen. Catch you next time. Hello, Chris. How's it going?
Pretty good, Coach. I left the ball cap off of this call, so not to steal your thunder or anything. So how's it going, man? Good call.
Yeah,
good
because,
call.
I hate it when people plagiarize me and use a baseball cap, man.
Yeah,
it's my look, motherfucker.
CRP for sure. Yeah,
it's my look. Yeah, baseball and glasses. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Nobody else can use that. That's
you
trademark.
Keep that moniker. Yeah, for sure.
So what's on your mind, man?
This is about daughters. I have a 14-year-old, and I'm divorced. And we got divorced when she was 6. Married for 12 years before that, so she came along late in the marriage. And so because of COVID, I was living in Manhattan. Because of COVID, I moved to Ohio to take care of my mom, who was absolutely alone. I work from home. I can work completely from anywhere on a laptop. I moved here because my mom, she basically, my parents were married, but she basically, put me into life and gave me everything I could. So I came back here to help her in her end of days. I got to spend the last 4 months of her life with her. She just passed away in January. So I moved away from my daughter, and that was a big deal. My daughter's a teenager in Manhattan, and
Yeah.
she is living in Manhattan right now, given the crap that's going on there, the crime, the BS. She goes to high school in Manhattan. So moving away from her was a big deal. So I've been kind of, broken up over it. Even though I've been going out there, I just came back from there. Spent a week there. So just
How
did a
much time
call
did
to
you?
her, and
How much time did you spend with your daughter?
so I I went head first into MRA and all that stuff when I got divorced, and I got 50-50 custody, decision making, visitation. I mean, everything. Basically 50-50 down the middle. My ex has a great job. She's fine, but I got straight up the best, like 50-50 relationship I could get with my daughter. Raised her all the way up to this point. Put her to bed every night, read to her, and I did all those fatherly things for years. Sacrificed a lot of personal time. Of course, being a single guy, like half of that time was, either working or spending with my daughter. So now we're at this point where she's in high school, and like you've had a lot of videos about this. Like, I'm the typical sort of type A corporate guy where, I'm a bull in the china shop. I'm completely right about everything. I'm not afraid of conflict. I will down with clients, customers, you name it, like not afraid of any of that. And it's to my detriment. It's not the best quality. I've had to rein it in. So there have been a lot of times where there's this one time where I raced her going to amusement parks, Disneyland, Cedar Point here outside of Detroit in Ohio, Great America, all those big amusement parks, going on roller coasters since she was a kid. And her mom is literally like a helicopter pass from head to toe. If they go out rollerblading, she has a helmet on, elbow pads, wrist pads, knee pads, butt pads, you name it. And I'm like, fuck it, let's just jump off a cliff, right? Like, who cares? Like, I'm the exact opposite of that. So, I raised my daughter going to an amusement park, and then I take her to an amusement park a couple years ago, and she's like dying, telling me she can't ride a single ride, saying that she's scared out of her mind. And I made her ride the rides, and she started crying, and it was just a big disaster. I mean, it was literally one of those fatherhood disasters where you're like, this is like a terrible day. I had to make her ride roller coasters where I knew she rode roller coasters. So I called her last week, and out of the blue, I mean, dealing with my mom just died, but out of the blue, I apologized to my daughter. I said, like, hey, honey, you remember that time in Cedar Point? I'm sorry I made you ride those roller coaster rides. I don't know where that came from. It literally just popped up once, like out of nowhere. I apologize to her for that. Being a dad, type A dad, I don't wear, pads, anything like that. Just send them off and do their thing.
Yeah.
How they
And
grew up
what
in the
did she
70s,
say?
right?
What did she say?
She was like, thanks, Dad. I really appreciate that. I got to go. I got to go to school. I'll talk to you later. But, the fact of like apologizing to your daughter, and I'll be honest with you, I was a dick. I can be a dick, right?
Yeah, okay, but
And,
that was the last conversation you've had with your daughter?
no, we text every day. I mean, this was on Thursday. I did this. And then we chatted a little bit yesterday. We chatted a little bit today. So it's all good. It seems like things have kind of like moved on. But
Okay.
I want to get your opinion on that. I mean, right or wrong, as a father.
Well, see, if you're wrong about something, or you reconsider something after the fact, you should always apologize for it. Okay. Now, I understand your motivation that you're like, well, she liked to go on roller coasters before, and now she doesn't like going on them. What's the problem? That's understandable. But see, rather than force her, you should have asked, you should ask, well, before, honey, you really liked going on roller coasters, and now you don't.
What happened? What made you change your mind? Since you've been on them and you know that they're safe, and you should approach it from that direction. See, whenever a child takes a step back, the issue is not to force them, but rather to ask them, why are they taking the step back? See, because it forces them to examine what has changed. Okay. And that's a more effective counter than to force them to do something. Because see, if they've never done something before and they're scared, then you have to give them a little push. But if they've done something before and now they're scared of it, then giving them a push is not going to help, because something has happened. So you want to know what has happened, what has changed. And if you already suspect what's changed, you suspect that her mother has put this, the safety first kind of nonsense into her head, then what you have to do is have her realize this, have your daughter realize this, and not you forcing your point of view on your daughter. See, because how do you convince someone of something? By browbeating them and forcing them to agree? No, they're just going to agree with you because they're going to be tired of you browbeating them, and they'll just want to say, okay, fine, you're right, you win. The way you convince somebody is to ask them questions so that they arrive at the same conclusions that you've arrived at already. That's how you win an argument. Okay? And in this situation, what you want to do is not say, oh, your mother is turning you into a little scaredy pants. No. You have to ask her, why are you scared now when before you weren't? Before you used to go on these roller coasters all the time. You see my point?
I do, yeah. And I'm just guilty of forcing my will on situations and in life, in business, in relationships.
Yeah, it's easier. It's easier. But you have to
Yeah.
understand that in the more important relationships that you have, or the more delicate relationships that you have, it's more important not to bulldozer your way, but rather to ask questions and to draw them towards you. Okay? Think of it, you're a bulldozer pushing forward, right? Now, that achieves a result in certain circumstances, especially with people that you don't give a shit about. But with people that you do care about, you don't want to push forward. You want them to come your way. See? And you ask questions that will guide them, that you anticipate will guide them towards the answers that you want them to realize. You see my point?
I do, yeah. And that is a skill, and I think that's an art that we kind of learn, at least I learned that I need to really focus on later in life, in my 40s.
Well, what you have to do is practice it. Okay?
Yeah.
You got to practice it. And the thing is, see, what's key is that you have to be calm when this happens, because when you're not getting your way, and this happens to me all the time, when I'm not getting my way, I get frustrated and upset and I want to push forward. It's the natural impulse. But see, when it's with people that I care about or who are important in my life for whatever reason, it could be like business people that I have to put up with. And so, well, what I have to do there is I have to be calm and measured and take my time and not be impatient, not allow my emotions to get the better of me. See? And because when you're emotional, you're not going to be able to formulate the right questions. You're just going to be wanting to get the situation solved. And that's the mistake. See? So yeah. And the next time, if this issue pops up with your daughter again, ask her questions. Draw her towards your position, as opposed to you imposing your position on her. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. I think it can apply everywhere in life.
Yeah.
Kids can definitely bring it out of you very easily. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially because kids can be very intransigent, and you're finally, you lose patience and you're like, just do it my way because it's my way. Okay. And that's
Right.
just, you just have to be a little more patient. I mean, this kind of shit matters more with the people you care about, like I said before. Okay. So yeah. Anything else on your mind, Chris?
No, great call again. I love it. I'll be listening again to this one for sure. Thanks again,
Okay.
Coach.
My pleasure.
Talk to you later.
Take it easy. Oops, sorry, I cut you off a little bit there, Chris. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're all, nobody else wants to be on?
Okay, well, how long have we? Oh wow, we've gone on 2.5 hours. Okay, I think it's time to call it a day. Time to call it a stream or a broadcast or whatever. So yeah, this is what I think. And like I was telling Chris just now, the important thing is that you have to be patient. Okay, you have to be patient and not impose your will. Because see, especially with children, you can impose your will very easily because they depend on you. But that's not the smart move long term, especially with smaller children, because smaller children will grow to resent you if you just simply impose your will on them. Okay? But if you it's sort of like bedtime issue. See, children naturally want to stay up later, longer. It's just natural, right? And you have to tell them, no, it's time to go to sleep. And what do? What do you have to say? You have to say, look, you have to go to sleep now, because if you don't get enough, if you don't get your 10 hours of sleep or whatever, because children need more sleep time than adults. If you don't get your 10 or 11 hours of sleep, you'll wake up cranky tomorrow and you'll be in a bad mood all day. Remember that other time? And you have to be more like that, more conciliatory. Telling them, no, it's bedtime, time to sleep. No, that doesn't work. You have to remind them. And you can eventually get to the point that, okay, you remind them and you talk it through and you negotiate with them that, say, 8 p.m. is their bedtime. No? And then after that, you're like, okay, 8 p.m. is your bedtime, and we agreed, and so that's that. You know, you don't have to go through the whole rigmarole every single fucking time, but you do have to go through it at least a couple of times. You do have to give them good explanations, because people, be they children or adults, they always respond better when you give them a good explanation. They might not like the explanation, but if it's a reasonable explanation, they'll ultimately acquiesce to it, because they'll know that it's a reasonable request for very good reasons, and it's reasonable. It's not unfair, okay? If you impose an arbitrary decision, young children especially will feel it's unfair, and they'll resent it, because young children can't do anything in retaliation, now can they? Because they're children, okay? They're too small, so they'll grow resentful. And what'll happen, of course, is, for instance, what happened with me. I got to the point of being so filled with resentment towards my parents that I don't speak to them. And I have no intention of speaking to either one of them until I die, because it's just too much shit under the bridge. And I'm a fairly conciliatory and forgiving person, but I just got tired. I just got tired, and I just decided, no, I don't want them in my life, full stop. And I haven't spoken to them in decades, okay? So you have to understand that children grow resentful, and you don't want that to happen with your own children. You want to make sure that they don't grow resentful, okay? So yeah, I'll take a final question, because it's my old friend, Mr. Blue. You don't want that to happen with your own children. You want to make sure that they don't grow resentful. Mr. Blue, so yeah, I'll take a final question. I'm muting you because I can hear myself. So Mr. Blue, can you turn off the volume so I can? Okay, I'm muting you because I can hear myself. So yeah, turn off turn off the. Oh, Mr. Blue, I'm not going to be able to have you on because I can hear myself on the broadcast.
Okay, how about now?
Now, that's fine.
Perfect.
What's on your mind?
All right, thanks, Coach. So you know, in terms of raising a daughter, I really like the presentation. You made a lot of great points. I have noticed that some married women will have affairs and cheat.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, okay, well, is that because women, you know, who are now empowered and who are now working and doing a lot of, you know, competitive things or whatever it is it because of sex drive? They want to have affairs because of their newfound sex drive and newfound liberation, or is it because of how they were raised? I have 2 sons, right? And I'm going to raise them. But, you know, with guys, right? You know, guys have, you know, may have an affair or may have sex, but it's not because of they want to ruin or lose their family. It's just sex, you know. So is it different for women?
Yes, it's different for women. No
And
question.
is it because of how they were raised, or what is the?
It's so many reasons. It can be a combination. Look, like all things, it's usually a combination of reasons. Nothing is the result of a single. Life is not mechanistic. It's not just one single thing that's pushing someone forward. Okay, that if you change this, they'll never do it again. No, it's a combination of factors. And so, see, like for instance, every human being comes across somebody who is more sexually attractive than their mate. It's perfectly natural, okay? And it's perfectly natural for a woman to be married to some guy and happily married with a family and everything and meet somebody else who just turns them on sexually and they never act on it, okay? It's just normal that people will come across sexually attractive people who are more sexually attractive than their mate. Now, whether they act on it or not has nothing to do. It can be the fact that their mate treats them badly, for instance, or it could be that the person, the woman, is bored in her marriage. It could be so many reasons, and it's usually just a combination of reasons. But bottom line, if a woman cheats on you, leave her. Period. No exceptions. Okay, and it doesn't matter if you have kids. It doesn't matter. Just leave her because she's not good for you. Because a woman who cheats on you once will cheat on you again. Simple as that. And if a woman cheats on you, I think it's a much more profound betrayal of trust than if a guy cheats on a woman. Because like you and I know that, just fucking some random girl doesn't mean anything, right? What really matters for a guy is who he builds a home with. But a woman who fucks around, she doesn't care about the home that she's built with her man. It's a totally different dynamic. And if she cheats on you, she's not worth having. I've done videos about this. Okay.
Yeah. I completely agree. So is there anything in terms of raising a daughter that would allow her to think that through 2-3 steps ahead and say, well, don't get seduced by this person, this guy that might be.
You have to teach them when they're young. As I mentioned, perhaps I mentioned it very briefly or too briefly, that what she might find sexually attractive is not what's necessarily good for her long term. See, and that's why I emphasize so much showing the before-after pictures of meth addicts and explaining to them, to the girls and the boys too, for that matter, that meth addicts, it feels really good short term. It feels fantastic short term, or else people wouldn't take meth. But it's a disaster for them in the medium term, let alone the long term. And you have to show that. You have to teach girls that a short-term high can have catastrophic consequences. Okay, that's the point of showing those pictures of meth addicts. That a short-term high, yes, it makes you feel really, really good, but in the long run, it's a disaster for you. And you have to inculcate that notion. Because especially as I explained, that young women especially are at the peak of when they're at the peak of their fertility, they are at the peak of the attention that they get from the society around them. And the society around them gives them so much attention and perks and benefits that they get addicted to it, to their long-term detriment. You see? And that's why the whole issue, I mean, it sounds silly, showing pictures of before after pictures of meth addicts, but it helps to get that notion that the short-term high is not worth the long-term cost. Okay, and that includes, of course, sexual promiscuity.
Yeah, and maybe something similar to show them what happens to what could happen to women who get divorced for dumb reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Anything else on your mind, Mr. Blue?
No, that's about it for right now on this topic. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks very much for coming on. Take it easy.
You too.
Gabriel, you're going to be the last on the show. And before I wind it down, what's on your mind, Gabriel?
All right, thanks for having me on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right, so since you live in the Ukraine, there's a stem cell clinic. It's the only one in the world. I saw this documentary called The God Cells. If you have an hour and a half to spare, it gives you the truth about the whole stem cell thing. And since you're right there and you have a heart condition, I want you around for as long as you can live and give these
Okay,
great videos for us.
Gabriel, I don't really want to talk about that. Okay, so I appreciate it. I very much appreciate the comment, and I very much appreciate all of that. But I prefer not to really discuss it, if you don't mind. Okay.
All right, that's fine. And
Okay.
lastly, I'm also a content creator and an aspiring writer, and since you've done it,
yeah,
right? Are you gonna make any more videos before you were interrupted earlier in 2020? What was going on? You were talking about like agents and everything else.
Oh,
So
the film business. Oh yeah, I did like a whole series on the publishing business, and I started doing the film business, but it was just I forget why I got distracted from it, and I wound up never really pursuing that. But you know, probably because like there's so many videos on film and film production that I thought it was kind of superfluous. Whereas I know that there aren't that many about the business of publishing. There's a lot of bullshit going around about writing, but not about the business of publishing and how it works and the income streams and whatnot, and the whole relationship between agents and publishers and editors and writers. Yeah, and so that's why I wanted to do those videos. But like I guess I just got demotivated from doing the film ones. Yeah.
and so about like actual publishing and writing, like novels, novella, and just content creation in general. Like, can you tell us about IP protection? What's the best for like preventing people from stealing your material, and what's the best way
Nobody's
to
gonna steal your
monetize
material.
it?
Nobody's
Local
gonna, it's so easy to prove that you wrote something. All you have to do to prove that you wrote something is that when you write a draft of anything, just set up a dedicated Gmail account, okay, like a separate one from your own, right? And you email manuscripts to yourself on that Gmail account, okay? So say, for instance, you write some piece of work today, you know, whatever piece of work, and you do your 1,000 or 2,000 words for the day. You know, at the end of it, turn it into a quick PDF file and email it to yourself at that account, right? And so what will happen is that automatically you'll generate an indisputable timestamp of when you wrote something, okay? And what will happen is that you can show it around to whomever you want without fear of them stealing it. Because if they steal it, you can easily prove that you wrote it, because you'll have that Gmail account with all those files that you sent to yourself, and that kind of email cannot be fabricated. You know, you can't. You know, it's and it'll hold up in a court of law. And so what'll happen is that if anybody were to ever steal anything from you, which they won't, okay, nobody with any kind of reputation would ever bother, because it would be such a headache and such a nightmare that they're not going to bother. But if someone were to do so, you'd win instantly. You wouldn't even have to go to court. You just have your lawyer draw up a complaint, send it to them, and show them that you have this these emails with your work and proof that you wrote the original idea, right? And they're fucked. They're fucked, and they're fucked on the spot. And their lawyers would tell them, "Look, you better settle this shit now." And any lawyer would be happy to represent you if that were the case. On a contingency basis, that is, that you wouldn't have to pay for them, because they'd know it's a winner, and they'd be happy to go with a third of whatever money they get from the potential plagiarist. So you know, there's no incentive. There's no incentive, and what happens is that a lot of people think that in professional land that they're trying to steal all the time. It's not the case, and nobody's trying to steal. Okay. And because it's too much of a headache and a hassle, and everybody knows it's so easy to catch somebody for plagiarism that nobody really bothers. That's why there aren't that many cases of plagiarism. Look around, okay? And the cases of plagiarism that do exist, it's usually like somebody famous, like J.K. Rowling, and some rando claims that J.K. Rowling stole their idea. And it could be that this rando has an idea very similar to J.K. Rowling, but they can never prove how J.K. Rowling could have known about this rando's idea. And so how on earth could she have plagiarized them? You know, it's some guy who's living in fucking, I don't know, like fucking Australia or some shit like that in the middle of nowhere. And he came up with an idea similar to Harry Potter, but, J.K. Rowling had no idea that the guy even existed, let alone about his work. So, that shit gets tossed out all the time. actual plagiarism, where somebody actually stole some idea and tried to pass it off as his own, is incredibly rare. And if it ever comes out in like some publisher or some film company or whatever, first of all, that guy's career who plagiarized it would be destroyed, because nobody would ever trust him again. No studio, no publishing house would trust him again. Number one. And number two, you could sue the ever living shit out of the studio or the publisher. I mean, sue them for a lot of fucking money and you'd win. And so there's no incentive. It doesn't happen. It's sort of like I've noticed a lot of people wonder about that. And it's kind of like a weird paranoid daydream that is not that is not something that happens in reality. Okay?
Oh, thank you.
No problem. Anything else on your mind?
Yeah. Do you think like the way things used to be with women in marriage, it's like find a good man to marry, and now it's find a good man to divorce? You think that's how things have changed, and like it's not even worth it to get involved?
We're going to have some sort of cataclysmic social change. Okay, that seems pretty much in the cards. I mean, it feels to everybody. You ask anybody that. Everybody feels that they're coming up onto the edge of a cliff, and then we're going to go off a cliff, and God knows what's going to be on the other side. Okay, so I think that everybody's waiting for that. That's my opinion at this point. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for being on, Gabriel. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to wind down this broadcast because we've been going on for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I think that you all are sick and tired of listening to my voice. So just to recap, build trust. You always want to be the rock for your daughter. That's what you want to be. You want to be the rock for your daughter, and make it clear to your daughter that you are the only thing certain in this very uncertain world. That's what you want to be. That's how you want to position yourself. And don't be afraid to tell your daughter that you don't know something. And when you say that you don't know something, invite her to join you in discovering the answer to the thing that you do not know. Okay? And she'll respect you more. Okay? And that'll happen when your daughter becomes a teenager, puberty and post-puberty. She'll question you, and she'll be looking to find things that you don't know, and she will find them inevitably. And what you do is the judo move of saying, yes, I don't know. Let's find out together. And that will create a closer relationship, because she will know that you're never going to bullshit her. And that's something that's really important with children. The firm conviction that the parent tells the truth and doesn't bullshit. Okay? So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this broadcast. I hope it helps you out, and I will catch you guys next time.